Good morning. It is Tuesday, February 7th, and we are about to start our council session for the day, and we're going to kick things off with a proclamation recognizing the 130th anniversary of the Noyes Library for Young Children, and that'll be led by Councilmember Andrew Friedson.
Come on up. Come on up. We have Noyes Library with us, and actually I have several colleagues who have joined us today who are such big fans and enthusiasts of Noyes Library. We have the current district council member, Kate Stewart, has joined me. We have our new lead for libraries, Kristen Mink, and we have Gabe Albertaz, who is both a fan and a consumer, as the father of four and a neighbor as well of it. But Noyes Library is a local treasure for our county and for our community, one of the only freestanding children's-focused libraries as we talk about children's literacy, as we talk about early childhood education. Noyes Library has been doing this work for decades and decades. We're so lucky to have a group of dedicated staff and volunteers and committed residents to have a library system that is so committed to this work in partnership with Noyes Library. We're going to go through and hear from all four of my colleagues, and then we will turn it over to the team at Noyes Library, and then I will go ahead and read this proclamation for this great celebration of such a great local treasure here in Montgomery County. So with that, let me turn to my colleague, Gabe Albertaz.
Well, thank you so much. This one was personal. When I saw this on the agenda, I felt like I had to participate. So in 1969, Mr. Rogers testified before Congress to advocate for more public dollars for public television. And in his testimony, he talked about the need to create safe places for our children. In this case, in the context of TV. But what Mr. Rogers was advocating for then has never been more important than right now. And one of his favorite quotes that I have is, "The connections we make in the course of life, maybe that's what heaven is." Well, for 130 years, children have been connecting to literacy, to books, to imagination, to other children, to other friends in Noyes Library. And my family and our four children have been one of the beneficiaries. Thanks to the incredible advocacy of the community, the staff at Noyes Library, as Councilmember Friedson noted, this is a treasure. And there is no more important treasure than our children. And so let's celebrate another 130 years and make sure that Noyes Library stays the treasure that it is, not just in Kensington, but for our entire region. Thank you.
Now let me introduce Kristen Mink, our new lead for libraries.
Thank you, Vice President Friedson, and thank you to all of the staff of Noyes Library who are with us here today. I will note that as we celebrate this auspicious anniversary, if we take it back a few years, I'm just going to look at, I have an interesting fact for you about librarian pay. In 1893, librarians were making $5 a month. In 1936, $15 a month. So we've come a long way. We've still got further to go. I say all this to point out that the staff of libraries have never been in it for the money. We always want to do right by them. Our libraries here in Montgomery County are such a special place. I have two little ones, and Noyes Library is a place that I have taken them to numerous times. It's not our neighborhood library, so every time we go there, it's like a fun, exciting field trip. And we've been there for music performances, for arts events, for read-alouds. It is a warm and welcoming place, and it is the people and their dedication and their creativity that make it so. So I am very pleased to be here to celebrate this day with them. It is places like Noyes Library and people like those who staff Noyes Library that truly make Montgomery County a community.
And now Kate Stewart, the new district councilor representing this area. I was safeguarding Noyes Library, this local treasure, for the last 4 years, and now passing the baton over to Kate Stewart to safeguard it for the next 4 years and beyond.
Thank you, Vice President Friedson, and I'm just so glad to be here, and I'm really glad to be the district rep for Noyes Library. As we've all said, it is such a treasure, and in particular, to have a library focused on young people and children. I know when my two children were growing up here in Montgomery County, the library was a safe place for them. It was a place where they could explore, where they could talk to the librarians and the volunteers about so many different things. And I just want to say thank you so much to the volunteers and staff for creating that for all these years at Noyes Library, and also for creating a community of lifelong learners. Because I truly believe when young people are in our libraries talking about books and have that place to explore, we are creating a community of lifelong learners. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Now I'll call up Karen Beardsley and Lindsay Field, the co-presidents of the Noyes Library Foundation. Then we'll hear from Anita Vassallo, director of our library system, and then we'll read the proclamation. So with that, co-presidents, they want to say a couple words.
Good morning. We're so pleased to be here. Thank you, Councilmember Friedman, for offering up this proclamation. And we just want to continue to make Noyes a place where learning and reading starts. So we are looking forward to the renovation where we can make more noise.
Thank you, Council President Friedson. I have with me here today some of our wonderful staff from the Noyes Library. Over here are our librarians who provide such great story times, reading assistance, helping parents and caregivers choose the right materials to get their children ready to read, which is what we want, ready for kindergarten. And then our great supporters from the Noyes Foundation here, who have done such a great job raising the funds that will allow us to do a major renovation of this building, turning it into a real center for early literacy training for parents and caregivers throughout the county. So we have been the caretakers of this building for many years. 130 years is a long time for a very small building to keep itself together here, and we look forward to many more years in the Noyes Library building, Montgomery County Public Libraries supporting the community in this very special way. So thank you very much for acknowledging the 130 years of the Noyes Library building today.
Thank you so much for that. Let's hear it for our libraries. Let's hear it for our librarians. Let's hear it for our kids. Before I read the proclamation, I did just want to acknowledge this is a long-standing partnership between Montgomery County government, the state, our partners on the Montgomery County delegation, and the community that really stepped up to support this project to make sure that these renovations can happen. I've got to say, everybody looks great for 130. So, I'll read the proclamation on behalf of colleagues. The County Council of Montgomery County, Maryland, proclamation. Whereas, on January 10th, 1893, the library constructed by Brainerd Warner and headed by Crosby Noyes first began operations in the newly established town of Kensington, formerly known as Knowles Station. And whereas, the town of Kensington has grown from being a stop on the B&O Railroad's Metropolitan line to a flourishing part of Montgomery County with a vibrant historic section and a strong family-oriented community. And whereas, the Noyes Library has become a center of early literacy and early childhood education by becoming a dedicated children's library with a focus on developing child-centric programs to be used in other county libraries, to work regularly with special needs children, to reach out to children who cannot easily attend the usual library branch programs, and to work with groups of parents and other adults involved in services to children. And whereas the Noyes Library Foundation was established as a community organization to preserve the functionality of the Noyes Library and to help ensure its continued growth and utility by supporting the expansion of the building and the continued operation by its highly trained staff. And whereas the Jan Jablonski Early Literacy Training Center was established in 2017 in association with the Noyes Library Foundation to develop and maintain a collection of resources on early literacy education for parents and all adults who wish to help lay the foundation for a lifelong love of reading. Now therefore be it resolved that the County Council of Montgomery County, Maryland hereby honors and celebrates Noyes Library's 130th birthday. And be it further resolved that the County Council recognizes that the Noyes Library continues to serve as a vital community resource for providing early literacy education tools and hosting beloved programs and story times for the people of Montgomery County and beyond. Presented on the 7th day of February in the year 2023, signed by myself, Andrew Friedson, Council President Evan Glass, on behalf of Council members Kate Stewart, Gabe Albornoz, Krista Mink, and the entire Montgomery County Council. Congratulations. Please get in and take a picture. Colleagues want to come down or stand up behind us. I'm going to come down.
That is wonderful. I think we'll have a new slogan that reading proclamations is fundamental. So our next proclamation, I need more coffee. Next proclamation is recognizing Animal Services Officer Danny Flores Lopez, and that'll be by Councilmember Katz and the County Executive, Mark Elrich, who is here.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you. Now, I do have to say that the library brought a lot of people with them, but the Flores Lopez family brought more family members with them. Please come up and join us. No one does this job by themselves, I can tell you. And I'm very pleased to be joined by the county executive as well as the director of Office of Animal Services, Tom Koenig. You know, Montgomery County is extremely fortunate to have the employees who work here, who take care of people each and every day. They don't get enough thanks, but we sincerely appreciate everything that they do. And this event, today's proclamation, is another example, maybe the greatest example, but is another example of how our employees do such a wonderful job every day. Officer Danny Flores Lopez was selected as the national, underline the word national, Animal Care from the Animal Care and Control Association as the 2022 Law Enforcement Officer of the Year. That deserves a round of applause. It's an outstanding because of his outstanding commitment to humane law enforcement and unwavering commitment to safety and welfare of animals. He's known by colleagues for his leadership and his mentorship skills. And we're going to read a proclamation that casually mentions him a little bit more, so I'm going to call on the county executive in 2 seconds. But just as an aside about the Montgomery County Animal Services and Adoption Center, it's located on Muncaster Road in Durwood. The center is operated by the Office of Animal Services and provides high-standard sheltering and care to the homeless, abused, and neglected animals in our community. And the officers themselves, the people that work there, are on call 7 days a week to investigate citizens' complaints in response to animal emergencies, literally 24/7. These calls include animal abuse and neglect, law enforcement calls regarding stray, rabid, or aggressive animals, and sick or injured wildlife. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the county executive, please.
Thank you. I just want to add my thanks and congratulations on getting this award. It says a lot about your commitment. You had to rise to a high level of visibility in the work you were doing in order to get this award, and I think it's well deserved. It's a challenging job. The county made major progress when we opened this new shelter. It was a major step over the facilities we had previously. We wanted it to be a humane center for care for animals and to help, both animals coming in there, but also the owners of pets, in order to help them take care of their animals better. And we've done a lot of work, and we're going to continue to do work to make it better, but it relies ultimately on the people who work there. And it's only as good as the staff that it has. And a good building is, doesn't make a good process unless the people who work there are really committed. And you've really demonstrated that. I want to thank you for your commitment to this. And it takes a lot to get nationally recognized. So congratulations for that.
Director Koenig, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, just real quickly, I can't tell you how proud we are of Danny and what he's accomplished over his career in animal welfare. It's such a well-deserving award. I've been doing this for 18 years, and this is a first. So it doesn't come around very often. It's kind of like an Oscar. I guess if you win one of those, it's pretty special. So this National Animal Care and Control Association has been doing these awards for a number of years, recognizing individuals from all over the country in many different categories of work. But in this one, we couldn't be more proud of Danny. His father is also an employee of OES, and we know where Danny gets his work ethic from because his dad shows up every day to do his job, and we're so proud to have their family in our family. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Koenig. Danny, would you like to say a few words, please?
Just want to say thank you, everybody. Thank you, council members. Can't appreciate enough the great team that we have at Animal Services. This wouldn't be possible without them. Got to give a huge proud to everybody at Animal Services. Everybody does a great job, and like Tom said, my dad works there, so I have to show up to work every day. My wife, beautiful wife, and my 2 kids are here. My friends, want to thank them, and my parents. They took great sacrifice for us to have a better future. They took a step further, and now it's my turn to take 2 steps further. And I want my kids to take a few more steps further to a great future. And I can't thank my parents enough for this great opportunity, and thank you.
Thank you, Danny. To say the extreme least, we're very proud of you and your family. They obviously raised a wonderful young man. This is a proclamation from Montgomery County. County Exec, would you like to read it?
Sure. Whereas the National Animal Care and Control Association has been presenting national awards since 1988 at the annual training conference, recognizing individuals whose exceptional performance and work in the field of humane law enforcement has demonstrated a strong commitment to the safety and welfare of the animals in their community. And
whereas in October 2022, the National Animal Care and Control Association, NACA, announced that Montgomery County Animal Services Officer Danny Flores Lopez was selected as NACA's 2022 Humane Law Enforcement Officer of the Year Award. And
whereas Officer Flores Lopez worked at the Montgomery County Animal Services and Adoption Center as an animal services officer since 2013, and when not working on the road or helping his fellow officers, he can be found cleaning kennels or walking dogs to assist animal care staff, or stepping in to assist in the adoptions program and intake staff, always going above and beyond to support his team and others. And
whereas Officer Flores Lopez is often called upon when advice or guidance from some of the less experienced officers, demonstrating his strong support for his fellow employees in their service to the community. And the leadership is on display even when he is working in other operational areas, including the dispatch call center, the animal care unit, the adoptions program, and administrative staff. And
All right. Officer Flores Lopez's demeanor never changes as he gives the highest level of service and attention to the community every day. Officer Flores Lopez has demonstrated the highest level of professionalism in his representation of the department and county as an example of his co-workers to follow and for the members of the public to appreciate. Now, therefore, be it resolved, Mark Elrich as County Executive and Sidney Katz as Council Member of Montgomery County, Maryland, recognize and congratulate Animal Services Officer Danny Flores Lopez as NACO's 2022 National Humane Law Enforcement Officer of the Year, and thank him for his outstanding service to the community of Montgomery County, its residents, and its animals. And it's signed the 7th of February, 2023, by myself, Council President Evan Glass, and Councilmember Sidney Katz.
we should get in the middle here so that the families in the
I know. Congratulations to Officer Danny Flores Lopez and your entire family. Thank you very much for your service to our community. We greatly appreciate it, and to all the other officers in animal services. We are running a few minutes ahead of schedule because we have interviews and want to make sure that they are all on time, so we will take a 5-minute recess.
and then your light goes on like that. Yeah.
Okay, welcome back from that brief recess. Now we're going to move on to general business. Madam Clerk, do we have any announcements?
Good morning, Council President, Council Vice President, Council members. We just have one quick announcement today on agenda item 3. We've added the date of the public hearing. It's Bill 2522, Forest Conservation Trees, and we were able to schedule this in front of the T&E Committee on February 27th, 2023. That's all we have for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. The clerk has circulated the minutes. Are there any changes? Not hearing any. Those are approved. Now we move on to the first item of the day, and that is a series of interviews for the Montgomery County Planning Board. As you will recall, last week we interviewed 2 candidates for the Planning Board. Both of them were Republican. We are obligated to nominate, to select 1 Republican, 1 independent, unaffiliated individual, and 1 Democrat. And today we are interviewing 5 people. 4 are unaffiliated, and 1 individual is a Democrat who is not able to attend next week's interview. So we've put all 5 before us, and now I would like to invite Mr. Paul Geiser, Ms. Mitra Petamine, Mr. Donald Silverstein, Ms. Leanne Tobias, and Mr. Brian O'Looney. And you have assigned seating with your name, so please find your spot. Good morning, everybody. It is nice to see you. Thank you very much for your interest in serving on the Planning Board. We appreciate that and look forward to this morning's conversation. I have a series of questions that I will ask you, and then my colleagues will each ask other questions as well. So let me get right to it, and we'll start on this side and start rotating. So Mr. Geiser, we'll start with you. What skills and experiences do you have that is relevant to the work of the Planning Board? And can you elaborate specifically with respect to the board's role in the approval of development applications, the drafting of master plans, and the proposed update to the growth and infrastructure policy? Mr. Geiser, we'll start with you.
Thank you, President Glass and Council. I feel flattered to be here amongst this group of esteemed people for the key position of the Planning Board. Thank you for this unique opportunity. For the last 35 years, my skills and experience as a seasoned residential architect with a great sense of scale and place uniquely qualifies me to be a specialized member of the board. I was fortunate to have won multiple design awards in my work, including AIA awards for my commercial buildings. I've designed commercial buildings in Montgomery County and have been through the park and planning process for commercial development. My specialty is additions, renovations, and new homes, primarily in Montgomery County, including multiple ADUs. I possess intimate knowledge of the zoning, site development, permitting, and inspection process for residential work, having designed over 700 projects in the county. I fully support and the concepts embodied in Thrive 2050. When the ADU legislation ZTA 1901 came up in early 2019, I worked with the council member staffs of Mr. Friedson, Joanne Dove, and Reamer, and then President Albernas to prepare drawings to illustrate how implementing the proposed legislation would actually look if built in large numbers. I do feel that the enacted legislation has fallen somewhat short with regard to independent units outside the House, and hope to get an opportunity to learn why and correct parts of the text amendment that have prevented it from being as effective as it should have been, especially for the freestanding ADUs. Although I have managed larger groups of designers in my career, I believe my strong suite is collaboration and creative problem solving with the ability to think outside the box. I have the ability to illustrate ideas graphically and effectively communicate those ideas to others. I have a background and keen interest in all things green, and have designed a net near zero energy house using passive house principles, which embodies building a thermos bottle. Little heat goes in, little heat goes out. Highly insulated, triple pane glass, great technology. This technology is widely used in commercial projects these days and is being adopted worldwide as the most sustainable ways of building, using conservation as a key. In addition to my work in architecture, I've shown the ability to identify and embrace emerging technologies by founding two companies that have had a direct impact on reducing our carbon footprint back in 2001. Scooter Commuter promoted the use of electric bikes and scooters. We showed these at green festivals and government forums, and have sold over 200 of these to enthusiasts and public agencies, including the Park Service. I did receive a transportation award from the county executive for innovating commuting on an electric bike in 2001. After watching the traffic on Rockville Pike from Kensington to Bethesda, it was faster for me to get to work on an electric bike than it was to sit in traffic. Better Bulb was the other company I founded, promoted the use of energy efficient lighting, including early versions of LED bulbs. These bulbs shine proudly in the Canon Senate Office Building, NIH offices, and hundreds of homes. In both cases, I was early, actually way too early, on the curve, recognizing the valuability of both of these technologies. I do have a knack for seeing trends prior to them coming into the marketplace that others fail to see. I have made a career of solving complex building challenges and would apply those problem-solving skills as a member of the board. Many of your shortlisted applicants have tremendous leadership background and a desire to lead this group. I do not have those aspirations. I feel my best role is in the design eyes and ears as someone who could read architectural drawings and fully understand the architect's intent. I'm a residential design specialist who knows zoning and building codes and and will today suggest specific improvements in both, as you will hear later in my testimony. A number of the suggested changes could be implemented and start to have a positive effect on our environment this year. With regard to reviewing development plans, I've been on the other side of the table working for a developer on a few commercial projects. At the time, it struck me as, frankly, a drawn-out and lengthy and cumbersome process. However, the work I see built as a result of the process is of the highest quality. I'm familiar with the master plans that have been done, find them to be a great roadmap, although detours can be encountered along the way. I find precedence in great design in the writings of Chris Alexander, who wrote the pattern language, which is a scientific evaluation of how and why successful spaces are planned and designed. I look forward to updating the growth and infrastructure policy to balance the new development with additional school funding and funding for roads and sidewalks. I see my role as a creative one on the board, bringing ideas to the table, working with the other attorneys, administrators, and civic leaders who would be critical in vetting these ideas. I will view all issues through the lens of racial equity and social justice. I come to you as a fresh voice, asking questions that others dare not, and bringing problem solving and forward thinking to the planning board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Geiser. Ms. Pedoim?
Good morning, Mr. President and Vice President and the rest of the council. And I wanted to thank you for allowing me this opportunity to come in front of you today. And also I would like to thank my family that are here or they're at their work watching me live. Their support is extremely important for where I have been in my life. I think of myself as an immigrant who has embraced the American dream. I was born in a Jewish family in Iran and came to this country in 1978 while I was on my last year of college in Tehran University. I came here to escape the persecution when the religious fanatics in Iran took over the government. I came in this country with nothing. With the help of some American families, I was able to get political asylum and paved my way through working in garment industry and other labor work in New York City. And eventually I was able to complete my master's degree in civil engineering at University of Maryland. I am here today because of those people who were in my life, helping me to achieve what I have achieved so far, and has brought me here today in front of you. I have no other agenda except giving back to our community. I'm a certified civil engineer. I have 41 years of experience working in different levels of governments, mostly in Montgomery County. What set me apart is my unique qualification that would provide me with in-depth understanding of master planning and development review process and the principles of growth and infrastructure policies. I have 5 years of experience at the State Highway Administration designing bridges. Then for 14 years, I worked at Montgomery County Department of Transportation, implementing different aspects of transportation infrastructure that it is one of the key elements and works for this position at Planning Board. And then I worked as a senior budget analyst in the Montgomery County Office of Management and Budget for 3 years, which gave me an in-depth insight in operating and capital budgets for many of county departments and agencies. Specifically, I had the portfolio for Maryland National Capital Park and Planning. That gave me a great insight about the operation of the commission and the capital budget for Montgomery Parks. And then that led me to 16 years work at Montgomery Parks at different senior levels and eventually as the deputy director of Montgomery Park. And I have a unique experience that is essential for this position. Many may not realize that how much of the work of planning board is in park and park planning and how it weaves back to the quality of life and economic development to make our county more competitive in this region. I was involved with many master plans, pros, and development reviews on a daily basis. Then I retired for the first time about 4 years ago. 10 months in my retirement, right before the pandemic, the county executive asked me to lead the Department of Permitting Services as a change agent to find ways to streamlining the permitting process, change the culture, and provide the best customer service possible. This opportunity gave me another insight for the development review process. As you know, development review process starts with planning department through planning board, and it ends at the Department of Permitting Services when the permitting starts and eventually ends when we issued the use and occupancy in the department. I believe that with the wide range of the work that I have done in the past 41 years in different capacities in the state and county, that I can provide a unique contribution to this position, and specifically to provide a fresh perspective for our parks and open space in Montgomery County, which is an important icon attracting people. I am a no-nonsense team member who gets things done and who fully understands the importance of the commission. My engineering background has enabled me to solve problems objectively based on facts and data. I have no bias. I am a go-to person to get job done. I'm very sensitive to community needs and desires, and I would be your park advocate at the planning board. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Penwilliam. Mr. Silverstein.
Thank you, President Glass, and thank you to all the members of the council for allowing me the opportunity to come interview before you today. First, let me tell you about my profession. I'm a civil engineer who happens to work for a real estate developer. You might think of a civil engineer as the guy who does the stormwater management plans, or the surveyor, or the structural engineer that keeps the buildings from falling down. But civil engineering is much, much more than that. Transportation systems, including traffic plans, sanitary sewer work, water treatment plants. We're the people that bring you the drinking water to your tap at home. Civil engineers touch almost every project in the built environment. In fact, I think of civil engineers as stewards of the natural and the built environment. I've been involved in many of these aspects. I've been on survey crews. I've calculated stormwater management and sanitary pipe sizes. I've worked with soil engineers to decide if buildings can stand up on the ground underneath them. I've done transportation studies, so I've been on the ground. I've spent countless hours on construction sites, so I'm very, very, very familiar with the process. I'd like to talk more about my qualifications in 3 groups. First, my formal education, certifications, and training, then my professional experience, and then my passion to enhance the quality of life in Montgomery County. I have a master's degree and bachelor's degree after 5 years of study at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. During that time, I was trained as a problem solver, because after all, civil engineers figure things out and they make them work. I also learned the unbelievable value of collaboration. Nobody has a monopoly on good ideas. I'm a registered professional engineer in the state of Maryland. That means I have the authority to design, stamp, and review plans and act as the engineering authority or the engineer of record on all civil engineering projects. I am a LEED accredited professional, granted that by the USGBC a number of years ago. I've personally managed the LEED certification from certified through platinum for many building types and been named as the LEED accredited professional on a number of different projects. In my professional experience, I've held many, many different responsibilities. I've been a designer, I've been a contractor, a construction manager, and an owner, and I've even been a public official, spending time at the United States General Services Administration and the U.S. Public Health Service here in Rockville. I've managed entire development projects, all phases, from concept to land acquisition, entitlement, planning, construction, fit-up, and occupancy. My project types include hospitals, museums, historic preservation projects, recreational facilities, restaurants, office buildings, retail spaces, almost every kind of construction type you can think I've done. I've testified personally or was on the presentation teams to applicants that have appeared before bodies similar to the Montgomery County Planning Board, including the Montgomery County Planning Board, the DC Boarding and Zoning Adjustments, the similar authority in Fairfax County, Arlington County, the City of Rockville, and the City of Gaithersburg. I understand the development process. I understand what makes it work. I understand how it goes together, and that enables me to work with applicants to fine-tune their projects. I have a real passion for Montgomery County and to make sure the growth of the county is enhanced. As we know from Thrive 2050, we can expect 200,000 more residents in the county by 2040. I want to do my part to make sure that that growth is economically viable, is equitable, and sustainable. I've lived in the county for over 44 years. I've raised 3 children who have all attended Montgomery County Public Schools. I live in Kensington, right near the Noyes Library, so it's fortuitous. There's a proclamation of that today. My children and I used to go there all the time. It's walking distance from our house. It's a great facility. I still participate in organized men's softball league. I play every week in regional fields, school fields, local parks around the county. I am an umpire for Montgomery County Little League, and we're all over the county, down in Bethesda, all the way up to the Soccerplex. I've been a coach in girls basketball through the Montgomery County Rec League. I've been a coach for girls soccer in MSI. I've even been a camp out trained parent by the Girl Scouts of America, and I've spent many nights at the fabulous facility in Brighton Woods up near Tridelphia Dam. I've even built 2 4-season cabins for the Girl Scouts there. So, in summary, I think my education, training, professional experience, and passion for the county uniquely qualifies me for a position on the planning board. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Tobias.
Well, first of all, thank you, Council President Glass, Council Vice President Friedson, and all members of the council for having me in today. Honestly, it's such an honor to be here, and I have to say I'm humbled to be here having heard the presentations of the other unaffiliated candidates. My strength for the planning board is that I've sat on so many different sides of the table with respect to real estate development, land use policy, affordable housing, and other areas that have a bearing on the work of the planning board. I have been for the last 15 years a green real estate consultant. I have engaged predominantly in finance and policy decisions, but I have also done granular work on the project level. For example, the first LEED Gold multifamily project in the United States was at 1200 East West Highway in Silver Spring. And that project was a project on which I did the LEED certification. I've also worked as a consultant to the federal government in developing retrofit protocols for the national real estate portfolio held by the federal government to make federal space more green and energy efficient. About half my career was spent in the commercial real estate industry. I was a member of the investment committee, and I was also a portfolio manager for real estate investment funds, national ones, with about $3 billion in dollars of property under management. And in that context, I worked with local development partners in getting projects planned and approved for construction across the country. The property types I've worked on are multifamily, retail, mixed use, office, R&D space, warehouse and industrial space, and indeed hotel space. So I've had a great deal of experience in working on the development side of the real estate industry. I have also, as a portfolio manager, managed the leasing, property operations, valuation, and ultimately the sale of that real estate. So I do know what makes the industry tick. With respect to growth and infrastructure policy, I spent 6 years during the Obama administration on the Environmental Finance Advisory Board of EPA, the Federal Environmental Protection Agency. And the mission of the board was to advise EPA on how to pay for environmentally sensitive infrastructure development. And in that capacity, I and my fellow board members identified financing approaches to leverage billions of dollars in private capital for green infrastructure, for building energy retrofits, for clean water programs, and for transit-oriented development. And in that capacity, I developed some expertise on working with bonding strategies, credit supports, the use of revolving funds, and public-private partnerships such as the one that governs the Purple Line. With respect to master planning, I have worked as a sustainability consultant representing a community organization in developing an urban agriculture and related economic development proposals for the St. Elizabeth's campus in Anacostia in Washington, D.C. And the takeaway there is that creative, environmentally sensitive measures and associated economic development approaches are very, very valuable in the master planning process. In addition to the above, I have also worked in affordable housing. I spent a brief time as an asset manager for a developer of affordable housing in the DC area. And in that context, we did deeply affordable housing, serving families from 30% of area median income up to approximately 80%. That experience really cemented for me the importance of affordable housing as a mechanism for achieving equity and social justice. In addition to providing the bricks and mortar, and might I add, we use sustainable approaches in that housing, the integration of building integrated renewable energy, for example, to drive down utility bills, which is extremely, extremely important to residents of affordable housing, to save them money on utilities. But in addition to the bricks and mortar, the company I worked with provided extensive resident services to those residents, such as homework support for children after school, nutritional programs, job counseling for the residents of the housing. And I did really get a great appreciation of the fact that master plans and real estate need to serve not only market level activities, but also to be a mechanism for social justice and to serve the people who do need a leg up in terms of where to live. In addition, past 4 years, I'm going into my 4th year, as a mentor at a wonderful program in the DC area called Streetwise Partners. And Streetwise Partners provides job training support in the sense of providing job hunting skills and access to people from underserved communities and recent immigrants. And that too has given me additional insight into the importance of planning as a mechanism to build people, to bring them to the next level. So I think I have the sensitivity not only to address the financial and economic development aspects of planning, but also to look at the needs of underserved communities and populations that do need support. Largely, additionally, growth and infrastructure policy, environmental finance advisory board, we did that. And then the other most important thing is what I've been able to do in Montgomery County over the past 9 or so years. There have been a couple of sector plans that have affected me personally in southwest Montgomery County, the downtown Bethesda plan, and then also the sector plan for the West Bard area. And in that context, I have worked with my local civic organization to evaluate those sector plans and to testify before the planning department, before the planning board. So Natalie and I were together then. And then as well before the council. And in giving a neighborhood or a resident perspective on those sector plans. As well, I testified before this council on Thrive 2050. And I've also been following very closely school utilization, both from my area and through the county, and the growth and infrastructure policy. So I've had a variety of experiences, which I think has given me a strong grounding on what is needed to be an effective member of the planning board. And I would welcome the opportunity to serve the county even more in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tobias. And Mr. O'Looney, let me just also reiterate for everyone's awareness that the 4 panelists who just spoke are the unaffiliated candidates, and you are a Democratic candidate but unable to join us next week, so you were joining us today. So yes. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, and thank you for accommodating my schedule. Thank you, Council President, Council Board members. It's an honor to be here before you all and before these amazing planning board candidates. You would definitely have some difficult decisions to make in the future, and it's a testament to Montgomery County that such wonderful prospective applicants to the board are here today. I'm honored to be on this panel before you. I am an architect at a principal at a company named Torty Gallis and Partners. We have designed over the history of the firm over 500,000 units housing 1.25 million people, many of whom live in Montgomery County, but that is a global statistic. We are known for market rate housing, affordable housing, and mixed use housing. I work primarily on mixed use transit oriented development. I have done projects that accommodate affordable housing at mixed use locations. With retail and supermarkets on the ground floor, with residential above. We believe we had built the first wood high-rise in the U.S. in Petworth, D.C. We have done affordable housing with passive house design as well in Meriden, Connecticut, also near a train station. And I personally have been involved in designing a few thousand units of housing. Our practice is known for a breadth of construction, everything from tall high-rise, like the two tallest towers here in Rockville today, to incremental single-family and affordable homes that serve military communities and affordable housing communities. If you've been on base at Fort Belvoir, you'd be familiar with some of our work. There we innovated to add mixed-use retail, so there's some townhouses over a Starbucks and a Shopette, which is their version of 7-Eleven. Those are the kinds of work we strive to accommodate in the communities that we design. I am also a lead AP, BD, and C, and I'm an author of a book called Increments of Neighborhood, which is used as an anchor text in a number of university real estate and planning programs and in planning offices across the country. That book compiles building types that serve walkable neighborhoods, everything from small single-family homes to high-rises, but really focuses on broadening the concept of missing middle to include other types that have retail, small and light on the land retail types, which help serve neighborhoods today. In the past, I have designed a baseball stadium, some university buildings, and some tall office buildings in former firms, but found my passion working on building mixed-use town centers, which have, in the end, fostered about 5 parades, I think, we've experienced in that our projects, where there was nothing before, now allow communities to gather and celebrate their pride. I too have presented before Montgomery County's planning board and many other planning boards across the country and can bring the experiences to bear from that. And I do also agree that that process is a little attenuated in Montgomery County and would work to help make it more efficient so we are seen as a community where people want to build. And I also believe in projects that are economically viable, equitable, and sustainable. And I am excited to potentially support and foster the goals of Thrive for the county moving forward. I think that's all I need to say at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Looney. Next question, we'll start with Ms. Pedouin. What are the most critical issues you believe the board needs to address over the next 2 years?
Thank you for the question. In addition to hiring a new planning director and restoring the planning staff confidence, following are some critical issues that would come in front of the planning board. The first thing is what everybody has been discussing, and you just referred to it, is streamlining the planning review process. Hopefully you have a copy of my testimony that I provided to the Montgomery County delegation in response opposing to the bill that was introduced by Senator Ben Cramer that mandating to have a restructuring task force to look at the organization of the system. If you look at the last paragraph in my testimony, I was suggesting exactly what I read last night, that a deal was struck on this bill that basically does the same thing, that they are asking to create a voluntary work group to include staff from all the different part of the 2 agencies, Planning Department, Parks Department, and County Executive, DPS, Department of Permitting Services, Department of Transportation, and also a lot of and Planning Board Chair, and also a lot of people from public, to have developers in different parts of developing commercial or mixed use, and also have some people from other parts of the county that represent the different civic group to participate. And a letter of intent was signed by both county executive and also the chair, Jeff Zients, that how they're going to do it. This task group is going to, and I think that Council Member Gonzalez is involved in that. That put me right in the perfect position to do that, because I have not only know the processes from the beginning to end, I know all the people that are the stakeholders to make this happen. And frankly, while I was at Department of Permitting Services, I was very closely working with the planning director and planning staff, and we provide you a speed to market initiative that it provided some streamlining. And also I know that Vice President Friedson has been behind the resolution for the bioscience, and we worked very closely to shorten that process. Every process that it is in planning has a profound effect on the other end of the process, that is the transportation of Department of Permitting Services. And all of these streamlining needs to make sure that we look through the lens of equities and social justice to make sure that the public process and transparencies and input from public not to be sacrificed, and be able to continue and do the permitting. So it's very complicated, it's not that easy, but we are having the right people to make it happen. This work group is supposed to start in May and bring their funding to the delegation by October 15th. So that put me right in the right place to help and provide my experience with this group to make it happen. And I know that this is something that we need to do to get competitive with the region around us. The other thing that is going to come in front of us is the upgrade and update to upcoming growth and infrastructure policy. I know that Council Member Jawanda had some concern about it. I do support, that payment for, when we have the adequate public facility, those that have the most impact to those public facilities should take the lion's share of upgrading those facilities. So I support that. At the same time, we have to have formulas that is fair and just to make sure that we encourage the businesses to come here and provide us, with tax base. And also, we need, when we look at these adequate public facilities, we are not just talking about school and transportation. We think about all the supporting structures, including, water and sewer, the power grid, and also open space and parks, because with what we do with the dense and mixed use design, we, especially if we want to look for affordable housing, it's going to be less square footage. So that means that we need to provide more park and open space for these corridors that are densely populated. And that doesn't just include Bethesda or Silver Spring, it includes all the other areas like Larkspur, Wheaton, White Oak, Ashton, Germantown. So, Thrive 2050 includes all these dense areas. The other thing that probably is going to come in front of us is affordable housing. And when we talk about affordable housing, we are talking about not only that, but housing for all the different level of income. We need to provide that. There is a shift in generations. We see that there is not big development happening anymore. They are mostly rebuilt or infill. So that is a change in the way that we have been doing and getting affordable housing, especially with the new telework. Many of the offices are staying vacant. So Octave was a very good example that worked. It was an office building that they changed it to condos for the, first comers, people that with the lower income or mid-level income, with the young people that they need a place that they could be homeowners. And hopefully, if I'll be selected, I can bring all of those to the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Silverstein.
Thank you, President Glass. You've asked about what are the pressing issues that are needing to be addressed right away. I've selected 3. I want to be concise. I want to identify them. I don't think we have time to solve them here. Let me tell you what they are. The most pressing, time-sensitive issues. First, implementation of Thrive 2050. That's a huge effort, and the new planning board will be among the first to implement practices and procedures in compliance with Thrive 2050. In particular, increasing the stock of affordable housing and addressing traffic needs in the county. We need to figure out how to get people through the county and around the county. The best parks, workplaces, and residential neighborhoods lose substantial value if we can't get to them and around them. Secondly is the hiring of a new planning director. That person will hold that position for perhaps 20 or 30 years, and they will have a huge effect for decades to come on the shape and the growth of the county. We need to make sure we get the right person. Third, updating the growth and infrastructure policy. The last update required huge amounts of time and energy. The next update might even require a greater effort. We need to concentrate on that, allocate resources to it. It's a huge tool for the county in the growth and development of Montgomery County. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Tobias.
I would say that there are, for me, 4 key priorities for the planning board over the next couple of years. I'd say first is restoring trust in the planning process. I think that finding a new planning director, as Mr. Silverstein said, is critical. We need someone whose vision will be supportive of the implementation of Thrive 2050. We need someone who will work constructively with the council and other stakeholders. We need someone who will lead the staff and provide partnership to the chair of the planning board and the members of the board. We also need additional transparency at the planning board level. I think that we want the public to be confident that open meetings laws are followed scrupulously, and that the planning process is more accessible to the community. When I started to work on testifying and following and testifying on sector plans, even though I had decades of experience in the real estate industry, I found the process very complex, and there was a great deal of nuance. It took time to master, and if I was having difficulty, I can only imagine what other community organizations, what other residents feel in trying to navigate that process. So something I would like to see are process improvements that would make the planning process more accessible to residents who have concern about it. Secondly, implementing Thrive 2050 is critical. The key issues are implementing the sector plans and zoning changes that will implement 15-minute living, the refinement of housing policy to enhance housing choice at all price levels and affordability, and also activities to promote economic growth in the county. And all of this needs to be done in a sustainable way. So I would say that that's priority 2. The third area is the Purple Line. That is a particularly, we do have 5 years to get it built, but the planning issues have to be addressed prior to that time when the line becomes operational. And the concerns that I see are supporting small businesses in the path of the Purple Line. At the moment, there is concern that some of them could conceivably be displaced. And then ensuring that communities in the path of the Purple Line, again, are accessible to people of all income levels. Finally, there is a need, I think, going forward to be alert to the changes in land use that have been caused by the pandemic. The warehousing, the industrial sector are doing quite well because of e-commerce. That's done very well. The residential housing market, although it's under some challenge now because of the increase in interest rates, is generally holding its own, and there is certainly need for more multifamily housing in areas in the county. But I think that is something that we know how to manage in the county. The areas that I see some concern with is declining use of retail centers and vacant office space. So an issue is how will those space uses potentially be repurposed to ensure the continuing vitality of the county and maintaining the property tax base. So I think we want to be alert to that, and the planning department, the planning staff, and members of the board will want to implement Thrive sector plans, zoning changes in a way that enhances the economic condition and the livability of the county going forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Orluni.
Sure, thank you. I agree with most of the priority issues raised by the other prospective candidates, but I want to add a few more on my own. One is reducing parking requirements in transit corridors to make housing more affordable. Right now it costs, say, $7,000 to build a bathroom, about $15,000 to build a kitchen, but it takes $50,000 to build those 2 parking spaces that you need in a structured parking garage. So if you put affordable housing in places where you don't need parking, it's a lot cheaper without the parking, and particularly in transit-oriented places. So by expanding better, safe, and consistent transit, we could help reduce our parking loads and parking requirements and have a stronger commuting, and also augment the possibility for affordable housing. I think, obviously, the implementation of Thrive 2050 has been mentioned, but one of the challenges is going to be finding creative ways to incorporate housing within the neighborhood that improves community desirability. So I live in Kentlands. We've had ADUs for 25 years. Kentlands, a townhouse in Kentlands is worth double the price of a townhouse just outside of Kentlands where ADUs are not accepted. So I think there are ways of doing it where we can protect home values and allow for growth in ways that are mutually supportive. And for example, there are many communities that have like Seattle and Bryan, Texas, that have pre-approved housing plans that are already permitted, that are beautifully designed. The community has accepted them, and you can just go in as a homeowner and pick up the plans and build that day. And that's efficient. It's powerful. It allows for better quality within neighborhoods and strengthens community bonds and allows more people to live in our communities. So I suggest that that's something we can do. We spend in Montgomery County I believe, over $140 million a year on getting our kids to school. That's a lot of money that we spend primarily because we're wasting time. There are unsafe paths in a lot of places. And a lot of that conveyance is because of safety within the public realm that we can improve. And so if we find a way where more kids can walk and bike to school, then we empower our youth to control their lives, and we save a lot of money in the long run. This is a double win. And so when we're looking at bike infrastructure and looking at path infrastructure, I think a new focus needs to be less on quarterways and long travel, which we need, but also on each of the individual school catchment areas and how we ensure that more kids can get to school on their own safely and in a more cost-effective way for our county budget. I agree with the notion of streamlining the communication. I think at the same time we need to allow more voices to be heard. Luckily, communication advances have helped with that, and I think there are ways of using those communication advances to make the process more efficient and yet have everyone have a seat at the table. And so we should set an inviting and welcome tone for conversations surrounding the public realm in Montgomery County.
Thank you. Mr. Kaiser.
Yes, so ultimately we need to restore confidence in the board. When the new board is assembled, I would suggest some community outreach. Again, the transparency, I agree with all the things that were said before. Open meetings, we have to be very strict about that. I do feel that finding the right planning director is extremely important. Gwen Wright left an incredible legacy behind her. I read something she talked about when she was first appointed, and she talked about the 10-minute community. So somehow the 10-minute, maybe because of traffic, has become the 15-minute community. I'm not sure, but she's left a wonderful legacy of work all throughout the county. My concerns going forward the next 2 years would be displacement from the purple line. People who own houses near the purple line, we want to make sure that they be able to keep their houses. Businesses near the purple line, as are developed, there's a tendency as land values go up that they get pushed out. Houses are flipped. We need to keep those people where they are and those businesses where they are. The challenge of the damage done by the pandemic, we have Lake Forest Mall closing today. Malls are, my wife came in and said she was at the mall, and it was just a very different scene. The demographics have changed. Office buildings are vacant due to the pandemic. What can we do about that? Does that require some kind of special task force to address that? Because that's an immediate issue brought out by the pandemic. I do think that liberalizing the ADU legislation would make it more successful in the lower county. The formulas as they ended up were a little tight on the smaller lots. I've always felt that the square footage requirements, if you have a 6,000 square lot, that 600 feet is not quite enough for a decent one-bedroom apartment. It really needs to be about 720 square feet. So the formulas that relate to the square footage of the lot, square footage of the home, don't work particularly well on the really tiny lots where we want that dense development. So I think there could be an effective rewrite of that in a text amendment that could really jumpstart the freestanding ADUs in Lower County. I do have some specific things that, because of my experience in other jurisdictions, that I see that are on the micro level, but I think they're easily attainable and they're very important to me. In my neighborhood, there's a large home on a 2-acre tract that was torn down. A developer put 5 houses on that lot. He tore down every tree, coast to coast, property line to property line. We have no protection of our heritage trees. DC has a very strict heritage tree law. You're fined a sizable amount of money if you take them down. Somerset has a provision in their zoning that you can't take down trees unless there's a good reason. The only reason the developer took down all the trees is because it was a little bit easier for his bobcat to run around the site. He could have left them on the perimeter. He could have left them in the backyard. I think that's a real flaw in our system, and it should be addressed immediately. It also affects our runoff, as we know. Related to that is the, again, when I I look at Arlington, for instance, they count paving and lot coverage. So in Arlington County, you can do 45% lot coverage, including your driveway. We have no such legislation. I can pave my front yard if I want to. There's a blind spot there. We need to jump in and address that. Again, that could be done with an immediate text amendment to control that. We should step back and look at all the rules for lot coverage and relating to additions. I can build a 400 square foot addition, which could be 3 levels, and not have to do any drainage review at all. If you have a lot bigger than 15,000 feet, it doesn't matter what you do, no drainage review at all. So there are some holes in our system that we could easily fix. Again, this is on the micro level, but within this 2-year period, Thrive is going to take a long time. We have to write the plan, implement the plan. You know, I'm not sure how many results we're going to see within the tenure of the board, of the council. But again, these are things that could have immediate impact on our environment that I suggest we do right away. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for those responses. The next series of questions are pretty straightforward. And so first one is, do you have any limits on your availability to fully participate in and prepare for board meetings? And we'll start with Mr. Silverstein.
Thank you, President Glass. I have no limits on my availability. The owners of my company are 100% behind my participation on the board, and they'll offer me whatever time I need to fulfill my responsibilities. I've been at the firm for 28 years. I am an executive vice president. I have a staff where I can delegate my work. I set my own schedule, so that will not be an issue. My 3 daughters are launched. They don't live at home anymore. I also heard Council Member Fanny Gonzalez loud and clear last week when you said, gee, I wish somebody told me how much time this was going to take. I don't know how much time it's going to take because I haven't had this job yet, but I'm willing to do whatever is necessary to fulfill the obligations. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Tobias.
I don't have limitations. One of the advantages of being a self-employed consultant is I have tremendous flexibility with my schedule. My husband is very supportive of my applying for the planning board, very excited. And so I would be able to devote whatever time is needed to fulfill my responsibilities.
Thank you. Mr. Aloni.
My partners at Tordiales are very supportive.
I'm sorry, can you speak up?
Yeah, my partners at Tordiales are very supportive of participation in the planning board. I do not foresee that many conflicts in working here.
Thank you. Mr. Gazer?
Yeah, I'm readily available to meet all planning board requirements. Although I've managed the design department in Landis for 8 years, I stepped back a year and a half ago and have the time to devote fully to this endeavor. Landis has a history of public service. Chris Landis was appointed on the DC board for a couple of terms. Ethan Landis was on the code committee. They fully understand and fully support what I'm trying to do here. So I do not have the commitments of a principal, and I have the time allotted that's required.
Thank you. Ms. Pedoin?
This time I'm fully retired. All my time is available to you, and my kids are grown up. I have 2 grandkids that are taken care of by my daughter, so I don't have to worry about it. So I have my full attention to this.
Very good. Thank you. Final question from me, and we'll start with Ms. Tobias. Are there any potential conflicts of interest of which we should be aware?
No business conflicts. One thing that I want to be alert to is my community service. I'm on the board of my local civic association, and we certainly do weigh in on land use issues. So the issue is that if I were appointed to the planning board, my first act would be to sit down with council and say, do I need to resign my civic position to make sure that there is no conflict of interest.
Thank you. Mr. Looney.
Okay, so Tordiales has a $12,000 contract in Prince George's County, part of MPCC, and we, to do bike infrastructure design, I do not foresee that to be a conflict, but happy to go before the state's board of and confirm that with them. So other than that, I am member of with ICSC's Government Relations Board in Annapolis. But if that's a conflict, I'm happy not to remove myself from that. But I do think it helps understanding where their perspectives are. And other than that, I think those are the major.
Thank you. Mr. Geiser.
Yes, we have no conflicts. We're a high-end residential firm. We do occasional commercial work, but none that goes through the parking planning process. Most of our work is in D.C., but we have 9 projects in Maryland on the residential side that go through DPS, so I don't feel that's a
Thank you.
conflict.
Ms. Pedoin?
I have no conflict.
Thank you. And Mr. Silverstein?
I have no conflicts. Neither my company nor any of its affiliated companies own commercial property in Montgomery County, nor do they have any plans to develop in the future.
Thank you. Thank you all for your candor in that response. I will now open it up to questions from my colleagues, and we'll ask everyone to be cognizant of the time, and please, everyone wants to ask a question, so please keep your responses as succinct as you can. I'll turn it over to Vice President Friedson, Chair of the Planning, Housing, Parks Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, thank you to each of you. We are so fortunate to have such incredibly talented people willing to serve in Montgomery County, and this morning has just been another example of that. So I just wanted to thank you for that and recognize how fortunate we are in Montgomery County. We talk about it a lot, but today certainly proves what we say in terms of the purpose-driven and talent that we have among our residents. So my question, similar to last week, is that discussions surrounding our efforts to combat climate change often overlook how important our growth patterns are and how they impact the way our environment, how they impact our environment. Yet the work that the Planning Department and the Planning Commission do play a critical and crucial role. The way we grow has an enormous impact on quality of life, but more importantly, the sustainability of our county and our region as a whole. Could you each address how you view the intersectionality between land use planning policies at the Planning Commission and the environmental imperative that we have to build sustainable communities? And I suppose we can start with Mr. Olini.
Well, I think one thing that we can do is to reduce the reliance on automotive transport in growth plans and opportunities, and that's an easy direct connection from the master planning to the ground. We can also support more sustainable energy practices. I actually have, and I've fought hard in my neighborhood, as some may know on the board, to have solar installed in my home, and I think others can do it if they're encouraged and the knowledge base is out there. And we have a lot of great vendors in the county who can help with that and other good energy systems that don't rely on fossil fuels. So I think I'll leave it at that.
We can just go down, Ms. Tobias, if you want to go, and I think we just go down the line. Thank you.
I think, first of all, the county has worked very hard in the last several years to become greener and to dovetail planning with sustainability. So I'm thankful that the 15-minute vision of Thrive 2050 cuts down on vehicular use if implemented well. I think that we need more mass transit if possible. I realize there are funding constraints, but I'd certainly like to see more bus rapid transit. I would like to see perhaps some pilots to try to get folks from the subways to single-family neighborhoods, perhaps some sort of more with the ride-on bus system or more with shared rides, so that we reduce vehicular use on the roads. Let's see. I would say that in general, in the area of economic development and sustainability, the issue is the owners of smaller buildings. Large developers, large institutional investors have baked sustainability into their development processes. It's really working extremely well. but folks who are less resourced need support on energy efficiency. That's small business, that is homeowners knowing how to be more energy efficient. At the county level, county facilities, I think that there has been a lot of progress on making the county's real estate holdings and vehicular fleets more energy efficient. I would just like to see those things continue.
I don't think we have time to address all the solutions, but I would like to talk about some of the tools that we can use to advance sustainability in the county. First, the county is a leader in the nation in sustainable growth, but we can make it better, and we have a slew of great tools in order to do that. But we have to figure out what level of sustainability do we want to achieve. Thrive 2050 says, yeah, sustainable development, sustainable growth. Well, do we want to lean toward LEED Silver, or do we want to end up in carbon neutral? And I think the economic realities are going to play a big role in balancing how sustainable we are. Ultimately, the county council will determine, with the advice of a myriad of agencies within the county, what that level of sustainability will be. So let's talk about some of the tools that we have to get to where we want to go. LEED for cities and communities. Great idea. It doesn't focus on single buildings the way traditional LEED has, but whole entire cities and communities. We can use that tool. Montgomery County Green Bank, great vehicle to help with the economic side of sustainable projects. They were intimately involved in a solar panel project where we put solar panels on the roof of the JCA building, where I'm treasurer and a board member. Great people, they help a lot, they can advance sustainability in all phases of the county. We also know from other jurisdictions that we can borrow some things that work. And let's take the BEPS program, Building Energy Performance Standards. It was passed by the county last year, great program. In the District of Columbia, we're a year or two ahead. DC has extended that program to include not only buildings, but transportation and infrastructure. So we might want to borrow from that after we see how it works. I am intimately involved in the 2 million square feet of properties that my company manages in DC to make sure we meet or exceed all the BEPS requirements going forward. And those are just a couple of the tools, but I think that's how we define where we want to go, and then we just work out the details to get there.
Well, definitely, I would be supporting the guidelines for Thrive 2050. There are lots of guidelines in there. In addition to that, we have the PROS plan that is going to come in front of you in a couple of weeks. That's the Park and Recreation Open Space Plan. The most carbon footprint impact comes from buildings and vehicles. The best way to create sustainability is to have what Thrive is recommending, to have cluster development of mixed uses that people don't have to drive. They can live and work in the places that they enjoy and they like. And put them in the area that the transit and public transportation is readily available. The next one is to design and construct highly efficient buildings. The science is there. When I was at the Department of Permitting Services, the IGCC is going to be, we were providing provisions to include it, that we can support the electrification bill that the council passed, and also the county executive is supporting that by 2035 we have zero carbon footprint. So the electrification of the building and electrification of the single vehicles and also all the other machinery that we use, either electrification or hybrid, and also includes stormwater management guidelines, the green roof. And in addition to all of that, we have to have the infrastructure to support that. We have to make sure that we have the power grid skeleton that to support the electrification. And also, we have to have all of, if we want to use hybrid or electric car, we have all the charging stations for people that they could use that. In regard to transportation, all modal of transportation are available in our toolbox, and that could include walking, biking, public transportation, hybrid, and electric cars. And all, of course, I support everything else that all our qualified applicant has said it in here. Thank you.
Well, first on my list is electric bikes in every driveway, clearly. So, other than that, I think that one of the opportunities we have is a little bit harder to accomplish. So, in reaching out to the leadership for planning to reach out to sister agencies, DPS, Fire Marshal, Health Department, WC, Pepco, Washington Gas, and Foster Change, we're connected. We can't do it. You can't do it alone. You have to have those agencies. When I go in for a building permit for an addition, I have an incredibly well-insulated, heated and cooled addition with R20 walls, R48 ceilings, attached to a house that has a fraction of that. So why can't that be regulated? When I go in for a building permit for any kind of work with DPS, automatically I have to upgrade my the smoke detectors in the home to code. Why can we not require that we add extra insulation to the old part of the house, thicken up the walls, add new windows? There can be requirements for people that are doing the addition that could improve the energy conservation in the existing home. I also wonder about how we can get the cost of these ADUs down. Right now, to affordable level, right now, one of the provisions is you have to, they treat an ADU like a brand new house, which means you have to add a sprinkler system to a home. So if it's 700 square feet, you're 3 steps away from a door and 5 egress windows, yet you have a $20,000 sprinkler system adding to the cost of the unit. Can that be reviewed? Is there an opportunity to review that? Again, I agree the technology is here for better standards. I wonder about gray water. I wonder about composting toilets. Where are we with all that? You know, that also could reduce the cost of ADUs and make it easier to develop those. Reducing minimum lot sizes for housing. That's a long-term goal. Collecting rainwater, taxing the removal of green space, taxing paving in a more aggressive way, higher efficiencies, minimums for HVAC equipment, and then in some way incentivizing creation of public parks in neighborhoods. When occasionally public parks in neighborhoods are created when a house is sold, we need to encourage that so we can get more green space. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Council Member Albornoz.
Thanks, everybody. Associate myself with the comments of both the President and Vice President in expressing my deep appreciation in your willingness to serve and just how impressed I am with each of your resumes and your community engagement. I'll start with Mr. Silverstein. The comment that you made in your experience about serving as a former umpire, I can tell you that that skill set is transferable, as we've learned from previous planning boards, so I appreciate you bringing that up. And I think, frankly, all public officials could have that similar experience. You mentioned in your comments, and I totally agree, that one of the significant roles immediately facing this planning board will be selecting a new planning board director. Could you talk a little bit, please, about what you will be looking for in a planning director? And I do want to publicly once again acknowledge the great work of Ms. Tanya Stern, who has been doing an excellent job in an acting capacity. But if we could start with you, Mr. Silverstein, and then maybe we can go to your right until we go down the list. So, Mr. Silverstein.
Great. Thank you, Council Member. First, I need to clarify I am a current Montgomery County Little League umpire. Planning director is incredibly important, and I have a whole list of attributes I think belong in that position. First, a track record of demonstrating equity, diversity, and inclusion in their professional life. We need a seasoned planner who's more than just a city planner. A third of our county is in the agricultural reserve. We need someone who knows how to do planning in rural areas as well. We need a consensus builder with good judgment and confidence in their ability, because God knows people are going to be questioning their ability all the way along the line. We need someone that will accept new ideas and look elsewhere in the country to find things that work and implement them here. We need a clear and concise communicator, and we need a strong coach and leader. Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, I have to say that I have the word respect for the previous planning directors that I have been in the planning department. I work very closely with a few of them, especially with Ms. Wright, and I have a lot of respect. So what we were looking for is going to be a visionary leader, a person that can bring innovation and new ideas, helping staff to formulate their report, to bring it in front of the planning board, and a leader that can create agreement and consensus agreement. I cannot say the word. Among all the planning board and between the report that a staff bring and the review by planning board and the chairperson. And also another important aspect for this position is ability to handle the day-to-day operation of the department. So a good managerial skill is very important. Also, they need to have a lot of experience and knowledge in land development, and also be familiar with zoning and development review processes in Montgomery County. Another very important aspect for this position is communication and people skills. The director of the planning department worked very closely with the Parks Department director and also with the whole commission as a whole, not just Montgomery County. They deal with also the Prince George's County and the commission and the directors. And another skill and aspect that is important for this position is that to be able to collaborate with all the other new planning ideas and all the other planning associations and corporations to see that what is happening not only in the region but also in the region. So they have to be nation, very active in the world of the planning.
When Gwen Wright started her job, she was asked what her vision was, and her response was that she has 3 visions for the 3 different parts of the county: urban, suburban, and rural. These are big shoes to fill. She did a fabulous job of guiding the development for the last 9 years, and continue the work of her predecessor. She leaves a legacy of leadership with building historic preservation program, implementing Reforest Montgomery, introducing concept plans to speed up the development process review, and worked on master plans for almost all of our communities. In addition, she did a full update to the general plan. She was a deserved recipient of the APA Planning Award this past fall. The results are stunning. Cutting-edge buildings going up in Bethesda with generous amounts of public amenities, open plazas, interconnecting pedestrian walkways, biotech projects full of color that are breathing life into Silver Spring. There's a clear consistency of message that must be continued. The staff at Park and Planning deserves credit as well, and the new director must have the leadership skills to lead, but also connect with the staff. It took a year to fill her position. This is not going to happen overnight. We should not rush the process. We should take the proper time to find the right candidate. We should do that through a process of vetting. I would look to a leader who would be capable of pulling together all the stakeholders, land and building owners, developers, community, and the community to effect positive change through the lens of racial equality and social justice. We should apply the same standards to when looking for a parks director as well.
Mr. O'Looney?
All right, so first characteristic would be empathy for the citizens of Montgomery County, and someone who's open to voices, to a wide range of voices, someone who is passionate for the public realm, and who also understands the market realities and life realities of our citizens in Montgomery County. I think I agree with most of the other characteristics that have already been expressed. I won't repeat them, but generally those would be the additions I would look for.
Thank you.
I think that, first of all, we need someone with strong vision that's compatible with the vision of the council and willing to work well with the various stakeholders who are engaged in the development industry, with the various county agencies who support development. We need someone who has had strong planning experience with a major jurisdiction, and someone who will be an inspiring leader for the staff and will partner well with the planning chair and the planning board. Someone who also has strong feelings on the goals and objectives of Thrive 2050, economic development, sustainable growth, complete communities, 15-minute living, that sort of thing. But I think even more important in some ways is someone who is comfortable with the diversity of this county. This is not a one-size-fits-all county. The needs in Ashton or Poolesville are very different, let's say, than the needs of downtown Bethesda or downtown Silver Spring. East County needs someone who is comfortable with promoting economic development. And then the downtown areas of Silver Spring and Bethesda, I would say, need more in the way of streetscaping. They need a more inviting environment, but to build on the urban growth that has happened there to date. I think listening to the citizens, having empathy, as Mr. El-Nouni said, very, very important. Someone who welcomes diverse views. I think that very frequently we have seen that people have felt shut down. Citizens have felt shut down in endeavoring to testify on land use issues. My view is a little different. I think that citizens have a lot to contribute to the strength of the final plan. And very frequently what you see community members advocating for are things like more green space, more amenity, more parks, more open space. And those amenities ultimately are going to be important in leasing and realizing value with the final project. So what I would say is we will end up with stronger development applications and stronger sector plans if we take community views very much into account in order to strengthen those plans.
Thank you, Councilmember Albornoz. Next up, Councilmember Sales.
Thank you, President Glass. So I first want to start by thanking everyone for coming before us. I know it's a lot of perspectives to weigh in and to answer all of our questions, and so we thank you for coming forward to take on this important role. As a former council member in the city of Gaithersburg, one of the only municipalities with its own planning board, therefore, we don't participate in the Maryland National Capital Parks and Planning process, but we have seen significant expediency with how quickly they advance master plans. That makes the city, also known as the biotech corridor of the region, more competitive to growing and emerging businesses. How do you see your role, the role of the planning board as an institution of equity and competitiveness now and in the future, and how will you use your role to advance Thrive, prioritizing green space and a healthy tree canopy? Thank you. We can start with Mr. Geiser.
With respect to economic, was that for me?
Oh, I think we're going to start with Mr. Geiser and then go down the line. Sorry.
So as I read over Thrive 2050, I was distressed to read about the vast differences between the average assets and debt carried by individuals of color, including those of Hispanic origin, when compared to others and people of color. Debt was twice as the value of assets, and the opposite, it was the reverse for white and Asian populations. It was distressing. The disparity is enormous. So, I mean, the strategies I would use, I guess I'd call it redlining in reverse. Historic black neighborhoods with high concentrations of lower income Hispanic origin, create special programs for instance, for energy efficient upgrades so the utility bill is lower. You could target those, the neighborhoods literally on the other side of the tracks, Littonsville, Kengar, there's many of them there. So clear communication, I think, is very important. I just want to show you an example. This is, as far as communication goes, the county has this program that's been in place for 8 years. It's called the Application Form for Property Tax Credit Renewable Energy. It's a $250 dollar-for-dollar tax credit that you get for forms of renewable energy. What it really is if you buy light bulbs for $250, you get $250 back in your taxes, but it doesn't really say that. This is the most underfunded program Montgomery County has, except for me, because I've used it for 8 years. In a situation where you have a home with incandescent bulbs, this could save them $1,000 a year for 7 years, and it costs them nothing. If this were relabeled and we clearly communicated to all stakeholders, especially those in underserved communities, this is huge. I don't know how many other programs there are. I only know this because, I look at these. I think it's just mislabeled. If it said light bulb tax energy credit, send it out to all your constituents, and the fund would be expended in about a month. So there may be some other low-hanging fruit there, but I'd like to look into that as well. Developer incentives for not only moderate incomes, but low incomes as well. Zoning reform to increase density per acre and number of units per parcel. I would say reforms in the fees for DPS. So maybe if I'm adding a 4-car garage, I pay $1,000 for a permit, but if I'm adding a bedroom, I pay $200 because maybe not everybody needs a 4-car garage. There are ways to do that and structure our price structure so that is responsive to social needs. I would reach out to to Lime and the e-bike and the e-scooter companies, have them stock bikes in those underserved areas so people can get to Metro, to get to a bus, get to transportation. If you want the contract in Montgomery County, this is what we want you to serve. Take it or leave it. So I think we can be proactive, again, along the purple line, we want to make sure that those people are not displaced, and that higher placed businesses go in. People that own their homes in those regions should be able to retain the property. And then again, if we can reduce people's utility bills in any way we can, an outreach program for caulking and sealing. It's not solar panels. It's very boring, but caulking and sealing can save them $50 a month in their energy bill. Let's reach out, tell them about that, and put together a program for them. Thank you.
I totally understand that, a lot of times we feel that our master plans are not implemented fast enough. And we prepare master plans for 20 years to come. And sometimes at the end of 20 years, we say that a lot of things has not happened yet. One thing that we can do is that to make our county more competitive, that businesses can come, that we could develop our master plans. And by looking at tribes and also Tribe 2050 and the master plans and also the pros that we have, it allows us with many tools in our toolbox when we review our development and master plan areas or sector plans that they come to the planning board, to make sure that they stay competitive, and also at the same time they follow the equity and social justice guidelines. We can look at our capital improvement CIP and operating budget with equity lens. We could look at them to see that where the funding is going and how it's going to impact the people of color or all the other ethnicities that are there. The other thing that we could do is that we can include all of these provisions in our design guidelines. For example, we have ADA, American Disability Act, that we could include for inclusion. Many of these guidelines could be there. We could have it for design for life. And that's the way that and many architects are doing their building design, because we want to be able to grow where we live. We also need to make sure that we communicate well across all the different diverse groups that are living in Montgomery County. Bring translation, sign languages, and also bring them to the table, bring them to come to make comments and empower them, and that they could equally challenge us with their own issues that they have. When the project comes in front of the planning board, we're going to look at the merits of the project. At the same time, we're going to put our equity and diversity and social justice lens to make sure that it passes through those also. Of course, there are some unforeseen consequences that sometimes we don't foresee. So we have to have people that they are able to resolve and provide solutions for those unforeseen consequences.
Thank you.
Racial, ethnic, environmental, and economic equity are often centered around matters of access. Access to affordable housing, access to transportation, especially between housing and places of employment, access to healthy food, grocery stores, green space, medical facilities, excellent school. The planning board can take a leadership role in ensuring this kind of access is included when developing master plans and approving development plans that come before it. As far as tree canopy, if it were determined by the county council, we should add more requirements to the ordinance. That's an easy way to do it. Thank you.
With regard to racial equity, social justice, and environmental justice, for that matter, what I would like to see is substantially more outreach and listening by the planning department and the planning board to underrepresented neighborhoods, underrepresented populations. Something that I thought was excellent in the Thrive process was the focused outreach as part of the Res J requirement. And I thought that the results of that outreach were, in some ways, they were surprising to me. And you indicate that there is a need to listen more than has been the case over the past, maybe the past 20 years, 10 years. First of all, one thing that I think came through very clearly from those hearings was just how participation is scheduled in terms of logistics. A lot of folks said, I can't come to meetings in the evening. I have children to supervise. They're doing homework. It's just not going to work. On the other hand, on weekends, I have more flexibility. And if outreach and hearings are available on the weekends, I am much more likely to come, and my spouse or partner can stay home with the children. So I think that just logistical changes are needed in providing that outreach. Secondly, what I thought was interesting was the response not only of people with white-collar jobs who typically do want mass transit, do respond well to 15-minute living, but people with blue-collar jobs said, what about road access? My job requires me to drive across a far-flung ambit to get to the clients I serve or the facilities I serve. So my view is that rather than assuming that we know what is needed by underserved populations and communities, that we also listen very substantially. I do associate myself with the other comments on environmental justice, on the siting of facilities so that so-called noxious uses are not necessarily typically sited near lower income communities. I would say that upgrading the energy efficiency of public facilities and homes, the improvement of tree canopy, streetscaping, things that improve quality of life are very, very important to ensuring a strong racial equity, social justice program. And we want to make sure, as I mentioned, with blue-collar and white-collar professionals, that people can access jobs and employment. I think that's really crucial in ensuring that the sector plans and zoning decisions we make serve people. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Sales, when I consider the full range of questions you've offered, it actually reminds me of projects I've worked on where we put a lot of money and put a lot of effort into the project, and then by adding posters or other efforts to the back-of-house spaces and the fire stairs, the project feels way more loved and involved because you've thought about those areas and those spaces. This room, there's so much money invested in the AV system and the fixed seating, the dais, and it's those posters that show we have love in this county, right? And so we need to be attentive to the underappreciated, and that's how you achieve a feeling of quality. So add street trees where communities are barren. In serving those with accessible needs, we've also served those mothers who have strollers, because those curb cuts now allow everyone access. And once we provide that level of attentiveness to those things that are typically not attended to, you can attend to them for less money and make things happen that are powerful. I'll give you another example. We require big stormwater ponds for environmental reasons, right? These are places that we take out of our community that are active, are designed for the 10-year storm, which means they're active 1 out of every 3,650 days, which means it's just storage and not active for the remaining days. And we can do a lot to make those areas that are now sitting fallow better our communities. Not just in stormwater pond storage, we have lots of parking storage all over the county that could be considered better and improve our community quality.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Sales. I'll just let my colleagues and our panelists know that we do have a hard stop at 11:30 so that we can celebrate Black History Month. So I would ask my colleagues to ask their questions, and I would ask our panelists to be as brief as you can. We will follow up if there are any additional questions or context that is needed. Next up is Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Council President. I think many of you touched upon this area already, so hopefully your answers can be succinct. My question's around transparency. There have been questions raised by some about the transparency and decision-making of the Planning Board, about the process around Thrive 2050. Whatever your opinions are on that, I want to focus on moving forward. And if you are selected for the Planning Board, how do you plan to address these concerns, build confidence and trust in the Planning Board moving forward? And Ms. Padu, I think you're up first. Yeah.
Thank you. I try to go very fast for what you said. Moving forward, we need to make sure that we follow open meeting procedures and closed session rules, share openly all the information that we have, we need to educate public what that information means. A lot of time we give information that is hard for public to understand. So we have to be very simple and to the point and brief, and use technology. I know that the hybrid meetings are good. They allow a lot of people to attend, and those that they cannot attend, they can virtually be there. So let's start use of technology, and also make sure that we have translation and sign language, and we do, again, in regard to Councilmember Searles, make sure that we reach to all the different groups in the county. Thank you.
Trust is earned by consistent behavior over time. What we need to do in the planning board is have the utmost requirements for trust, transparency, and integrity. As a former employee of the General Services Administration and the United States Public Health Service, I understand the public trust, and we have to maintain that on the planning board. Trust is enhanced when you're consistent in applying decisions. We can't be arbitrary. There's a whole set of rules. We have to be fair. When we do that, we will gain additional trust. We have to be expeditious. We have to be equitable. We have to be fair. We have to make common sense decisions. That increases trust. And I think we have to increase our outreach. Maybe we need to follow the model of the school board, where they don't wait until the project is all designed and fully vetted by the staff, and then comes before the planning board, where most of the kinks are already worked out, where people come and make comments and express concerns, and they don't feel like they're listened to because all those things have been worked out. The plan complies with all the requirements, and the board really doesn't have a choice but to approve if it complies with all the ordinances. So maybe we get out there and talk to the community early in the planning stage, as we go through, listening to what they want. And if the board is unable to accommodate comments from the community, we need to tell them why. We need to answer the question. We need to respect their time and opinion. And we need to cite specific ordinances, rules, policies where the applicant has met them and there is no opportunity to make a change except to amend the ordinance. And the planning board can't be arbitrary in just deciding they want to add more trees because the neighbors want them. Sure, it can be a good thing, but if the applicant has met the requirements, we can advocate for that, but we can't always enforce it. We can't always give them what they want, but they need to know why.
I'm most concerned with complying with the open meetings laws, complying with the disclosure requirements related to organizations testifying before the board. What I would say is there has been a perception, it might be unfair, but there has been a perception that organizations who have views that are sympathetic to what the planning department and the planning board wants are given additional access in shaping sector plans and shaping other policies. And I would like to make sure that there is equitable treatment of people with a diversity of views. I think that will strengthen trust in the process, and I think it will allow for better plans that ultimately earn more popular support.
I guess I'll be very brief. Listen, respect voices, and openly communicate.
The selection process should be transparent, with perhaps more time for public comment. The council would be well served to select a mix of talented professionals, each of whom brought a specific expertise to the table, and that mix should be a few fresh faces with few encumbrances. To further restore confidence, we need to respect the rules for open meetings, strictly follow the ethical guidelines that are clearly laid out. No fancy dinners with developers before hearings. In a perfect world, you'd have not only a mix of racial and gender diversity, but also diversity of skills, a mix of dreamers and realists. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, very good. Councilmember Balcom.
Okay, this is a lightning round. Very important question, but you have to be very, very brief. We have a rich community, racially, culturally, but also geographically. Can you talk about your understanding and vision for the different planning and transportation needs of urban, suburban, and rural? Many people talk today about the 15-minute community. How does that relate to the outer suburbs and rural? Thank you.
Definitely, Thrive 2050 includes all areas in the county. That means that rural, suburb, and urban area. And they all deserve the same kind of attention. And that's extremely important also because it makes it competitive for different people. Not everybody wants to live in condos. We still allow people to live where they want to live. So they all deserve the same kind of attention. And we, through master plans, sector plan, area plans, Thrive, and PROS, we try to give everybody the attention that they deserve, regardless of geographical location and ethnicity and everything. That's totally my belief. And I believe that PROS and Thrive does that.
Thank you.
One of the things that make the county such a wonderful place to live is the geographic diversity. And we need a whole different set of planning skills for up-county, mid-county, and down-county. Fortunately, Thrive 2050 sets out the framework, and if we stay within that framework, we will be able to plan accordingly. One of the things a planning board has to do is be familiar with the areas in which they are making decisions. It's important to understand the different areas of the county, and I can tell you in my life in the county in districts 4 and 5, I spend a lot of time in District 7. I ride over 1,000 miles a year typically. I brought my bottle from the back road Century ride in West Virginia that I like to go on. So get out in the county, see the other areas. It will enable you to make the proper decisions and stay within the framework outlined by 2050.
I think, as I've said earlier in this hearing, I feel that paying attention to the diversity of the county is crucial, and that is certainly the case with planning and transportation needs. With respect to urban areas, I think that one concern is handling, I think it's handled very well. I think that there needs to be additional attention to what is done to with transitional zones between the CBDs and single-family neighborhoods. How is that transition made graciously and thoughtfully? With respect to the outer suburbs, I've spent quite a bit of time recently out in Kentlands and King Farm and those areas, and I've actually been very impressed with the planned communities in those vicinities. They're vibrant, they're providing a range of housing choices. I think that what is needed for some of those communities is additional connectivity to bus and subway services, as well as highway access that will allow folks to get to their jobs in other areas of the county. But I think that the idea of mixed-use development has worked actually very well in the outer suburbs. My friends in the more rural areas tend to be most concerned about environmental preservation. They don't want to be, they want to be able to get around efficiently, so appropriate road development, but they don't want to necessarily be overwhelmed with congestion either. So what I would say is taking the needs of those areas very seriously, improving mass transit when that is feasible, and also also making sure that roads, while we don't necessarily want to focus on roads, we must understand that roads are necessary, that we do need those corridors. For example, the plans to enhance transportation along Route 29, very, very important for economic development. So I think the idea is that a one-size-fits-all policy cannot work.
Thank
we need
you.
to be mindful.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll try to be brief. I think geographic diversity is one of our strengths, as has been said previously. I think we require in this county, because of our geographic diversity, a breadth of solutions. I believe in the environmental and planning concept of the Transect, and therefore solutions out in up county should be different than solutions for down county. I think curbless streets are perfectly acceptable in up county, but not necessarily acceptable down county. I think there are different stormwater solutions in all the locations, and therefore I think we need to embrace our differences geographically in terms of our notions of and our rules and how we deal in this community. I think we also need to be creative. One of the best things we've done for up county is to allow for our microbrewery communities up there, and it's phenomenal. It's created growth. It's created a new connectivity that I don't think we've had, and we need to find other ways of allowing, considering appropriate growth for up county as we have for down county.
I'll start with rural roads. Above all else, maintain the agricultural preserve and keep farming viable. Provide transit and metro, rapid transit, bus terminals, preserve the rural roads and continuation of family farms and incentives to keep farming viable. Include smaller homesteads as required in ADUs. Encourage development of ring connector roads. Virginia's done a good job of this. For urban, develop around density, maximum transit options, develop vibrant walkable cities. I think we're doing a great job of that. Suburban, I think we have to get our heads around for the suburban communities that you don't have houses here and townhouses here and condos or tall buildings here. Forest Hills Gardens is one of the most beautiful neighborhoods I've ever walked through in the Bronx. Everything is intertwined, houses and row houses and condos mixed in a beautiful fashion. We need to change our mindset about how we look at suburbia. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I know this is a lightning round, and I too will be in that lightning round. Let me just point out to Ms. Tobias that both Kentlands and King Farm were not under the county system. They were both planned in other areas. My question, and you've already touched on it in various forms, and if you could literally say in a very few words, during the time for Thrive 2050, part of the concern, whether it be fair or unfair, was that people thought that minds were made up prior to their discussions, and that that their thoughts were not being considered. Only one side was being considered and not the other. Whether that was fair or unfair, how do you prove to a person who is testifying that they are being listened to and that their thoughts will be considered? If you can do that as quickly as possible, please. Thank you, Mr. President.
What I would say is the planning department staff, when they are meeting with members of the community, spend less time in laying out the plan and more time listening. I'd say that planning board, I would like to see additional time for discussion. Very frequently, what I've seen in light of needs of efficiency, the planning board will often announce a decision at the conclusion of a meeting. And that does not promote the belief that the testimony has been duly considered.
Council member and former Mayor Katz, the answer is acknowledging the person who you talk to, acknowledging what they believe, and understanding that where they come from and what they've seen may not be what you've seen and what you've experienced, and listening for those things that might, in fact, educate yourself.
Please,
I'll make it very brief. I believe the key is outreach early and often, like we do our billing in our office.
Okay. This is the number one complaint I have heard during my 40 years with government. It's important that we listen to all different points of view, we be transparent, we do all the possible ways that we can to reach people, all diverse group of people. Bottom line is that we have to make a decision. A decision needs to be made. So it's a balancing act. When you make a decision, you make some people happy and some people unhappy. And those people that are unhappy, they believe that we did not listen to them. We heard them, but we had to make a decision. So we have to make sure that they understand we have heard them and why we made the decision that we made.
Thank you. Bring the community in early, get them to participate in the design process so they don't come on at the tail end when everything's already been decided. And if you don't agree with them, tell them why. Specifically, cite the ordinance, show them the zoning code, explain why the decision is made the way it is.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. So I'm looking at the time, and council members Ludke and Mink both have questions. Perhaps you both ask your question now, or if we think we can be really brief with their responses. Do you want to?
It's super quick.
Okay, there we go.
So what I want to know, and thank you for your thoughtful responses, this dovetails nicely with the last question, is how do you each plan to set aside your own personal preferences for your own personal choices that you might make for yourself when you're making a decision that's on behalf of the entire county? So, Mr. Silverstein, are you first today? Or sorry.
If you all think you can respond quickly.
I was going to say mine is similar, and there might be some overlap. Would it be useful? Would you mind, Councilmember? As an effort to be expedient, my question is in regards to outreach and community engagement, which some of you have touched on already. How will you ensure the planning board improves its outreach and co-creation of policy with residents, and how should the planning board balance community input with expertise and judgment of planning board commissioners? Some of you have spoken to this in particular already. Feel free to be concise or reference your previous comments.
I'll go as fast as I can. As an engineer, I'm really objective. I follow the rules. The rules are already set down by the county. We just have to apply them fairly. To make sure I'm not imposing some unexpected bias, I'll listen to the community. I'll listen to the other planning board members. I'll check my initial thinking on a decision, make sure it's objective, and try to be fair right down the middle. In terms of outreach, the planning staff has done a much better job in the last couple of years, but we need to do more. We need to go to where the people are. We can't sit at the planning board office and expect people to come in. We can't expect them to read the signs and sign up to testify. We need to go to where they are, to the schools, to the homeowners associations, to the sporting events, to the festivals, to the farmers market. We need to be where they are. We need to help them testify. Someone whose first language is not English doesn't want to stand up in that giant auditorium and start expressing their opinion when they're so unsure in front of a whole bunch of people sitting up on a big stage. We need to help them.
I think I've spoken about bias and outreach throughout this hearing. With respect to bias, I would want to go on listening tours, listening to those who particularly those who disagree with me. Secondly, with respect to outreach, in addition to the going out to where people are, the aspect that I mentioned before, I'd like to see more use of surveys. The county can use survey technology to get a very robust idea of community views.
So the planning board can be an emotional space sometimes, and what we can do as planning board leaders is to welcome us, make it a welcome, safe, and positive place, and encourage open participation. And if we continue to do that, even when things get tense, and take down the temperature, it will allow our community to grow stronger and together. So those are the things I would suggest.
And I would say a priority to reach out to those underserved communities. Very, very important, and constant communication, the correct kind of communication and inclusion early in the process. Thank you.
Okay, in this regard, I would say that my motto is the county's motto, that the translation is guard well. And as a public servant, I would be the custodian of the public service, and there is no place for bias for me. In regard to outreach, I have seen, frankly, firsthand, the staff in planning department and also in the permitting. They are doing a fantastic job in outreach. One thing that I can add is that use of technology. And right now with the virtual meetings, we can get more participation of people. And also I agree, going where people are. And I believe they are doing that, but we can do more of it. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, colleagues. Thank you to the 5 of you for stepping up and offering yourselves in the service of the county, and particularly at the planning board. Very enlightening conversation, and appreciate you taking the time. And as I noted at the beginning of this conversation, this is the second panel that we are having. Today, 4 of you are unaffiliated, and Mr. Aluni, you are a Democratic candidate, and next Tuesday we will be interviewing a number of Democratic candidates as well, and then we will begin our deliberative process. So this will go on for a few more weeks. Appreciate everything that you've done in the community and look forward to continuing this conversation. So thank you all for joining us today. Thank you. And while we were conducting that conversation, our room started filling up in anticipation of our celebration that we are about to embark upon here for Black History Month. And so I appreciate everybody. Yep. Oh, consent. Thank you. Let's consent to that. Thank you very much. Okay, so we will now move to the consent calendar. I was getting ahead of myself. I, too, am excited to celebrate. So may I have a motion to approve the consent calendar? Moved by Council Vice President Friedson, seconded by Councilmember Luedtke. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous. Thank you. Okay, now get back to my excitement. So every February, we acknowledge the adversity and the struggles, the strength and the history of the Black experience in the United States, in Maryland, and here in Montgomery County. And we honor and celebrate the residents in our own community who've engaged in the political process, who've been activists, who've challenged the status quo, all in the effort to make our community more fair and equitable. And this year's theme of Black resistance recognizes African Americans' resistance to historic oppression in the pursuit of self-determination and equality. And it explores how members of the Black community have resisted and persisted through historic and ongoing oppression, from escaping the plantation to rising out of poverty and the struggle for equal housing and education, to fighting for voting rights. We know that the resistance and persistence continues into the 21st century. And the civil rights movement made some great strides, and it eventually led to the Black Lives Matter movement, which has championed criminal justice reform, teaching the real history in our classrooms, and making advancements in social and economic justice as well. And resistance has always been a powerful tool in the democratic process, particularly in the fight for racial equity and social justice. And we know that the struggle continues, and we here in Rockville are partners in that work. And so I welcome everybody today to the council as we celebrate Black History Month. And now I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Councilmember Will Jawando.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for your remarks, and happy Black History Month to everyone, to my colleagues, and to everyone assembled here today. You know, I think this is one of the most important Black History Months we've had in a long time. Black history is under attack at this very moment. More than many states, it grows by the day, so I won't even give the number, but as of the end of last year, I think over 8 states had passed laws to stop the teaching of African American studies and history. Obviously, we've all seen the recent actions by the governor in Florida to challenge an AP African American Studies course that had been worked on for over 10 years one of the things you don't see in the headlines, deep experts, and had been piloted in 60 cities. Kids had already been taking this course to make a political point, but to really devalue and undervalue and undermine the history that is the African American story. It's important to remember that history is not just a collection of facts. It's a practice. It's a shared experience, a knowledge. It's the decision and choice that a society makes about who gets to tell the history and what that history is and what perspective it comes from. And we are at a moment in time where that's never been more important. Manning Marble, the historian, argued that Black history had three primary tasks: description, or the documentation of actual experiences of Black people in America; correction, tackling the mythologies and the stereotypes that were purposely put on Black people to keep them back and keep them from leadership positions; and using it to affect change through education so that we can know where we've come from and where we've been, and so that we can improve outcomes for not just Black Americans, but for the entire country. So here we are, a study, just 1964, you had the first African American study courses around Fisk University. Now we are under attack and being told we cannot tell our story at a time when it's really, really important. I'm thankful I live in a county and in a state that does want to tell the story. Not only wants to tell it, wants to celebrate it, and wants to use it to inform how we do our work. And so that's why we're here today. And I'm excited for what's to come in this celebration and all the people who have come to join us. And I'll turn it back to my council president to turn to my colleague, Councilmember Sales.
Thank you, and I will turn it over to Councilmember Sales.
Thank you, President Glass. For this year's Black History Month theme, Resistance, I am so proud to be here as the first Black woman and first of Jamaican heritage to be elected as a council member at large in Montgomery County, Maryland. I am the proud daughter of Jamaican parents who have dedicated their lives to public service and who have inspired my commitment to the sacred duty of serving our community. I would like to highlight the importance of political representation. Having a seat at the table offers the ultimate form of resistance, as it guarantees the voice of the communities who are leading the resistance are represented. If you are part of the discussion when policy is being formed, it allows you to offer your lived experiences to help form policies that uplift people as opposed to suppressing their voices. Like our late brother John Lewis championed, speak up, speak out, get in the way, get in good trouble, necessary trouble, and help redeem the soul of America. We owe it to ourselves, our children, and those before us to keep fighting for a seat at the table. Despite the many advancements we've made, issues of racial bigotry still impact our society today. Just recently, the young man Tyree Nichols joined George Floyd in a long line of others brutally murdered for simply being Black. Their deaths must not and will not be in vain. I hope my presence as the lone Black woman on the council can inspire the next generation to come out and be part of the solution to ending racial discrimination. For all those listening, walk into the room, join the table, take a seat, and as my Shiro, Shirley Chisholm, would say, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. Let's make change happen everywhere where there's unfairness and inequality, and if necessary, let's make good trouble. Thank you, President Glass.
Thank you. I am glad that you have a seat at this dais, so thank you. Before we get to a wonderful video that has been produced, I do want to recognize Kathleen Connor and Joseph E. Young from Congressman Jamie Raskin's office, so thank you, and thank the Congressman. So now I'll turn it over to staff to play a video for us. That'll be about 12 minutes long.
Black History Month. The national theme for 2023 is Black Resistance. Throughout history, African Americans have resisted ongoing systematic oppression in many forms, while also seeking to nurture and protect Black lives through various ways, including faith, education, fraternal and sororal orders, political representation, and activism. By resisting, Black people in America have achieved outstanding triumphs and maintained major successes. It all starts with faith, and it runs deep in the African American culture.
It predates slavery. Resistance started on the slave ships. We refused to leave our spirituality on the continent, and so it survived the Middle Passage. The first resistance was we will obey to survive, but we will go explore our God on our own. So we went to hush harbors, away from the master, to worship in our way. And the Black church was really born in these hush harbors. The community and the religion are always linked together, so that when emancipation finally happens, that tradition's already born. And that became a part of the story of Emory Grove as well.
Emory Grove was originally founded by freed African Americans in 1864. The Emory Grove United Methodist Church is one of the few remaining structures of the historic community.
This church's existence and the existence of the community in such a repressive environment by itself was resistance. Emory Grove was the center for almost 100 years of easily one of the largest African American camp meetings in the Mid-Atlantic. But it was also a very functional community that had a dance pavilion, a lit baseball field where Negro Leagues came and barnstormed, its own entertainment facility here called the Dewdrop Inn. Emory Grove underwent urban renewal when the town was actually destroyed. This church is now in the process of literally leading and rebuilding the town. To survive for a brighter day, that's resistance.
Carolyn Taylor grew up in the historic Emory Grove and remembers how it used to be before it was utterly destroyed.
It was a very interesting time when people really cared about each other, and that was the focus of your dignity and your pride, which was instilled in us. I think the resistance is that we're going to take care of each other. We're not going to be daunted. We're not going to be defeated. We're going to stand, and we're going to still pass our traditions down to the younger generations so that something will stand of what Emory Grove stood for.
As the late Malcolm X once said,
the burden rests upon the leaders of the Afro-American community to try and instill within the youth especially the desire to further their education, because without it, you're not going anywhere on this earth today.
Education was a form of resistance then, and it still is today.
When you look at the history of African Americans, you'll know that from the beginning of time, education was the one thing that we were essentially kept away from. Society knew that if African Americans were educated, that we would use that education to further our freedom. And so we've been fighting against systems of oppression to keep us away from education for centuries, quite frankly.
The Emory Grove Consolidated Colored Elementary School was built in 1950 to consolidate education for African American students in the local region. This was about 4 years before the landmark Brown versus Board of Education. The school was later named Longview School, and today the building is used as an MCPS holding school.
So here we are today, still needing to embrace education every way that we can to continue that legacy that so many fought for us to have.
With education comes African American sororities and fraternities, which have helped support the intellectual development of Black communities throughout American history. Some notable members of these organizations are in powerful leadership positions right here in Montgomery County. Members of the Divine Nine and Greek letter organizations have played a significant role in providing resources since the early 1900s. Each were established with unique core values, but share a common goal: to educate and uplift Black communities.
Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, just to give you a little background, was founded on the campus of Howard University on January 15th, 1908. The chapter in Montgomery County, Theta Omega Omega chapter, was chartered in 1969 by 32 women who lived in Montgomery County that really focus on voter registration, supporting legislation that affects the African American community, and reminding people to vote, how to register, how to make sure your registration's up to date. We have a youth leadership program, and I think that will go towards Black resistance by giving youth that confidence to get out there in public and speak up and speak out. In terms of our members who are probably very well known for their work towards the Black resistance, I would say Coretta Scott King, who's an honorary member of the sorority, but we all know the work that she did throughout her lifetime to help the African American community, but she's one among many.
Alpha Phi Alpha was founded at Cornell University, 1906, the first of the Black Greek letter organizations. Our first resistance, so to speak, is resisting the issues of racism that were attacking the men at Cornell. So the things that we were involved in from the very, very beginning as a fraternity were education and then leadership, and doing those things necessary to raise the level of access of our communities to the full economic and social structures of the country. I was told that alphas are the first, the best, or the greatest in every field. And then they pointed out people like Thurgood Marshall and Dr. Martin Luther King. County Executive Ike Leggett is in our chapter. We have had 2 chiefs of police in our chapter. Resistance is not just pushing back, but to push forward, to change things, and that was our motto operandi.
Some of the Divine Nine members also serve on the Montgomery County Council.
I'm a proud member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the oldest Black fraternity founded in 1906 on the campus of Cornell University.
I am such a proud member of the Montgomery County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, one of the Divine Nine members.
Both council members are prime examples as to why political representation matters and is another form of Black resistance.
Political representation is really important, particularly for the Black community. If you look at the period after the Civil War and Reconstruction, we had over 2,000 Black elected officials throughout the country, but that was all wiped away by Jim Crow. And you went to a point where you almost had no political representation by African Americans. Not only did they not have political representation, you didn't have access to the vote. And that had devastating consequences. The policies that we've seen over the years, redlining, segregation of schools, disinvestment in communities, poor water systems, things that we're still dealing with today in places like Flint and Baltimore, and go down the line.
These forms of resistance, whether it's through picket lines or peaceful assemblies, have always resulted in a push to policy making. This adds another opportunity for us to solicit revenue from short-term rentals. You know, that's what attracted me to policy making and allowed me to, serve in this position, was the history of resisting policies that don't work for our community and ensuring that we assemble the right people to have a seat at the table.
You need a lot of political will to get it done. And I think that's an important part of representation and resistance too, is that we can't just get 1 or 2 people in office. We've got to keep working with them, because those same systems that kept us out of office, that kept us from voting, are still active, and we must be just as active in counteracting them.
I will forever stand in solidarity with the resistance, and just because I have a seat at the table, it doesn't mean that struggle ends.
With political representation comes some form of activism, something civil rights activists and the late former United States Congressman John Lewis referred to as good trouble. Right here in Montgomery County, you'll find some who have done their part to resist against oppression. That includes Miss Willie Pearl Mackey King, a former member of the executive staff for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. She worked for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and helped transcribe his letter from a Birmingham jail.
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
I was there with him when he went to jail. I actually saw him handcuffed and put in the jail. I was frightened, but at the same time, I was dedicated to being with Dr. King in that movement, to try and do something to help our people. He asked for paper and pen in the jailhouse. And he was told, according to him, that this is not a library, you're in jail. So they gave him nothing to write with, write on. So Dr. King started to write on the edges of the newspaper and toilet paper, paper napkins, greasy sandwich bags, anything that he could find to write on. In the meantime, Clarence Jones would slip that out of the jail under his jacket, give it to Wyatt Walker or to me, and it was my job then to type it. And that was the beginning of the Birmingham jail letter. And what he wanted to convey to people is, it is now time for waiting to be put aside. We cannot wait any longer. When we boycotted, that was a form of resistance. If we said we're going to march in the streets, and we do that still, then that's a form of resistance today. And that's what we use to resist the things that are happening that are not supposed to be happening to us.
Although resistance against oppression continues, that won't dim the light for the bright future of African Americans.
I love it. That was awesome. Please give another round of applause for Jordan Lindsay and the communications team. Beautiful, beautiful. So now I'm going to open it up for comments from all of my colleagues before we get to hear from some of you. And we'll start with Councilmember Ludke and just go down the row.
Thank you so much, Council President Glass and Council Members Jawando and Sales for leading our Black History Month celebration. And thank you to all the incredible leaders and community members who've gathered here today. It's really fun when you're in the middle of something else to see all these friendly faces coming in and filling these seats, because these are folks you know who are passionate about our community, who are passionate about doing good work, and who are always showing up for others. So thank you. I live in Ashton, so I live right next door to Sandy Spring, and that Sandy Spring community's history is Black history. We have some of the first African Americans in our county to own property were in Sandy Spring. That was Richard Bott, Josiah Beans, Henry and David Biggerly, and that was in 1793. Think about how unique Sandy Spring was at that time. Shouldn't have been unique, but was unique. There was a community of Black tenant farmers, laborers, domestic workers, blacksmiths, carpenters, and other trades folks who, along with the enslaved Black community in Montgomery County at that time, made up, in about 1860, 30% of the county's population. They built Sandy Spring. They built Montgomery County. In 1822, the Sandy Spring Black community established a Sharp Street Methodist Episcopal Church, which is the oldest Black church in Montgomery County, and just celebrated its 200-year anniversary and fellowship. I think it was last month, maybe last month. It wasn't that long ago. And here in Sandy Spring and around Sandy Spring community, after emancipation, additional Black communities sprung up, despite the inequalities they were facing and despite the challenges going on throughout the state of Maryland. In Sandy Spring, they found community. And so I am grateful for that. I'm grateful for those who continued the work of the community, like Ross Body, who our community center is named after there in Sandy Spring, who was an educator. He was a teaching principal in a 3-room school in Sandy Spring. It had no bathroom. It had no books. He continued and he persisted on, and that came to be the new, bigger Sandy Spring Elementary School in 1952. And after desegregation, he served the Sandy Spring community at the Recreation Center at Sherwood High School in one of the most impactful careers that Montgomery County government has probably ever seen, and then passed on that legacy of service and education to his son, Troy, who served as Director of Equity for MCPS.
I take that very seriously, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity we have here today to recognize and celebrate it, and that we live in a community that allows us to recognize and celebrate that and does not try to bury the past. Thank you.
Councilmember Mink.
Hi, I'm sure we'll be glad to have conversations following our remarks and the conclusion of this. Thank you to all of you who are gathered here today. I see leaders from my district, Friends of White Oak are here, Burtonsville Elementary School PTA. These are fantastic Black-led, Black-majority community organizations that are doing transformative work to uplift the priorities of our neighborhoods. Jeru Bande is here, East County's Community Regional Services Director. And I just wanted to name that I'm representing District 5, which is a Black plurality district. We have the largest percentage of Black residents of any of the districts in Montgomery County. And I'm tremendously proud to represent this district. I also recognize the tremendous responsibility that this comes with, and as well as the tremendous responsibility that we all have to ensure that we are properly listening to, engaging with, uplifting, and prioritizing marginalized voices, including and especially the Black community, and especially at a time like this when Black history and the Black community is, as Councilmember Jawanda pointed out, absolutely and unquestionably under attack. So I wanted to take this moment to recognize that part of that for myself, and I think for all of us, and especially our non-Black members, is welcoming and appreciating and leaning into and engaging with efforts by our Black colleagues and our Black community members to hold us accountable where needed. That is something that we appreciate and lean into, and that I know that I appreciate and I lean into. And also, tied into that we recognize that part of the Black history in our country here has been the prioritization of white comfort. And that has a tremendous impact on how we all engage in these spaces, and especially in seats of power. And so I just wanted to state that plainly, because that is a reality that we sit with, and so we cannot change something if we can't acknowledge it. So I appreciate all of you tremendously for being here today, for uplifting Black voices and Black community members, for all of your efforts to hold myself and other colleagues accountable for our decisions, and for all of us being willing to disrupt white comfort where needed is an essential part of resistance. So thank you all, and I will turn it over to my colleagues.
Thank you. Councilmember Albornoz. Councilmember Albornoz.
Thank you. Well, hello, good and blessed people. It is wonderful to be with all of you this morning. I am County Councilmember Gabe Albornoz, proud chair of the Health and Human Services Committee and a proud disciple of Ike Leggett. He was one of my most important mentors, and in our not too recent past history here in Montgomery County, as Ike talks about often, in his first political campaign, he chose not to use his own image in his publications. While we've come a long way, we know there is still a long way to go. And I do want to recognize the council members who served before us so ably here in Montgomery County. In addition to Ike Leggett, I want to recognize Valerie Irvin, Cherie Branson, who is in the audience today, Craig Rice, let's give it up for Cherie, and say what an honor and privilege it is to serve alongside council members Jawando and Sales. We will work together to address many of the disparities that continue to exist and persist here in Montgomery County. And I want to highlight and recognize the incredible work of the African American Health Program and Dr. Keisha Davis and Dr. Bridgers and all of our black leaders that are working to recognize the importance of health equity here in Montgomery County. I am deeply committed to that work, and I want to recognize the incredible leaders that we have in the audience here today. Councilmember Jawando said it well. Black history is American history, and there are policymakers around this country that would do well to remember that. We will never forget that here in Montgomery County, and I want to thank all of you here in the audience who have made and continue to make remarkable contributions, not just to the black community, but to our entire community. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Vice President Friedson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, colleagues. As we've heard today, there is no American history without black history. There is no Montgomery County history without black history. It's not lost on me, I know it's not lost on any of our colleagues, that we are sitting in a building where the old Rockville jail was, where 2 of the 3 murders by lynching that have been documented took place. Mr. John Diggs Dorsey, Mr. Sidney Randolph, pulled out from this building, from this land where the building stood, and murdered by a mob. Not lost on us that we carry on that legacy, and we carry on the legacy of others, the rich and storied history that continues today, the legacy of people like Josiah Henson, the legacy of those council members that Councilmember Albornoz just noticed, those community leaders who continue that resistance and that persistence in the face of unthinkable adversity and challenge. The local leaders who are here in this room who continue to bear that burden and continue to move forward. We heard in the video that the resistance is not just about pushing back, it's about pushing forward. And there are so many leaders in this room, so many incredible people in this room who, by showing up here today, by showing up in rooms for decades and decades, have been part of that resistance and part of that persistence and part of what has made our county what it is. We have work to do. We have made some progress, but there is a lot more progress to be made. We are all committed to that. I am deeply humbled to be able to serve on this dais, to continue that work, to be able to stand alongside and to serve with my friend Will Jawando and my friend Lorianne Sales and all of us. And we work together with you, committed to carry on the legacy, to make sure that that pushing back is also pushing forward as we move forward. Today, as we commemorate and celebrate, important that we do both. We, in the words of Frederick Douglass, have to do with our past only as we can make it useful for the present and for the future. And so to that present, we honor you, we thank you. To that past, we honor them and we thank them. And to that future, we move forward together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Balcom.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for coming here today to commemorate Black History Month. It's so great to see so many familiar faces and to meet new faces. I am so proud to be part of the most diverse council in the history of our county. That's something that we should all be proud of. And now it's our responsibility to continue to resist oppression and to ensure equity in all realms, including our thriving economy. In my work with small businesses during the pandemic, we found out that not everyone had a seat at the table, which meant that so many people were left out of getting critical funding and critical support during COVID. They didn't get the state and county and federal aid that they needed. And we decided to do what Councilmember Sales reminded us to do, pulled up a chair and created a program, our Pathways program, for women and minority-owned businesses to make sure that we did a very small part of leveling the playing field. We cannot have true equality until we have economic justice and equality. And I want to welcome some of the graduates here today. It's so nice to see you here in the audience, and to personally thank you for your trust in the program and for making it such a huge success. I am and will always be overwhelmed by your expertise, your hard work, your dedication to making our economy strong and vibrant, and everything that you do as business owners. And we cannot forget that small business is the backbone of our economy, and you are those workers to make that happen. I miss you, I love you, and I'm so glad you're here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez.
Good afternoon. My name is Natalie Fanny Gonzalez, and I am so happy to see so many familiar faces. I know everybody's saying that, but I also mean it, and I feel I had to say it. I will say one thing. I'm not really good giving speeches. I really don't like it. I'm in the terrible line of work, I guess. I grew up with the understanding from my mom and my dad that when you are given an opportunity, you must use your power to make a difference. So when I was on the Park and Planning Commission, I was a vice chair of the planning board back, and I left in 2021. We were working on a particular master plan called the Leetonsville master plan, which is near downtown Silver Spring. There is a significant black and brown community with businesses there. And there was a light industry zone in that area. And that's one of the stops for the Purple Line. And what some of my colleagues wanted to do was to change the zoning to make it mixed use, which meant that some of these, businesses that were owned by black and brown communities will have been displaced. I was not gonna have it. So I reached out to the community and I convinced not all of them, my colleagues to preserve the light industry zone, because when you have an active sector that is doing great things and with communities that are not just working there, but living in the community, we need to actually support them, not displace them. So I'm taking that power to the county council. I'm the chair of the Economic Development Committee. Thank you again, President Glass, for giving me that position. I'm really thankful. And the first thing I did in my first session was to call on a joint session with the Economic Development and Education Committee, which is chaired by Councilmember Yawondo. It really upsets me and frustrates me that when you look at the performance data from children in second grade, third grade, fourth grade, it is the black and brown kids who look like me, who look like Will, who look like many of you, are doing the worst. And it's happening right now in front of our eyes. This is the future workforce. So it's not about warming up the seat and saying that I'm here. It's about really making a difference and making a change. So we need you to be involved in transforming our economy, our education system, to really uplift black and brown kids. And I'm sorry if I'm focused on that community, but it's the community that we need to focus on so they can thrive. I didn't want to do a speech, but I think I did. So thank you.
You succeeded, yes. Yeah. Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, thank you, and I think you underestimate your your passion. Thank you, everyone. I'm glad to see everyone here today and to see some of my neighbors coming out from District 4. I'm very proud to represent District 4, and looking out at all of you today, I'm reminded of the diversity that we have in the black community in Montgomery County, and in particular in District 4. We have one of the largest populations of African immigrants in the United States. We have Black Caribbean immigrants and a significant portion of African American residents. And as we celebrate Black History Month, we must acknowledge the diversity within our community. And we must also acknowledge that through policies that have been implemented throughout our history, we have created disparities. And these disparities reverberate throughout all aspects of life. Home ownership, education, as my colleague just said, health, interactions with the justice system, access to generational wealth. So while we celebrate today the amazing contributions the black community has made here in Montgomery County, and as many of you have made to our county and across the country, We also have to own the work that needs to be done to address the built systems that have excluded Black residents from opportunities and have created disparities. You know, each year during Black History Month, the Blair High School puts on a production of Sankofa. And if you have not had the opportunity to see it, it's actually taking place this month. Tickets, I think, are on sale now, so you can get them. And Sankofa is an African word which literally means to retrieve, go back and get. And it's about remembering the history so that we can move forward. So as we celebrate Black History Month, we must remember to look back, to not only celebrate, but to acknowledge and pledge to make changes so we can all move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And thank you to my colleagues, Councilmember Jawando and Councilmember Sales, and to our county staff for the truly wonderful tribute that you produced today. And being one of the last council members to speak, I know that I'm between us and eating, so I'm going to remember that. But of all the celebrations that I'm involved in, and I've been involved in a few over the years, I can personally say that this is one of the best, perhaps it is the best, that I remember. I see people in this room who have known me since grade school. I'm not going to point you out because maybe you don't want to tell everybody how old you are. I know how old you are. And of course, I, along with many of my colleagues in this room, have been involved in Montgomery County since the very beginning of integration, when it was integrated in 1950 for the Montgomery County Public Schools in 1956 in the Up County. I went to Longview Elementary from Gaithersburg Elementary. And I have said, and many of you in this room have heard me say, that yes, Montgomery County Public Schools did integrate, but Montgomery County did not integrate in 1956. And I always see head shaking when I do that, because that is absolutely true. It's a sad truth, but a truth it is. And I know that I have truly been blessed in my life by having the friends that I have, some of whom I speak to several times a week, who have been mentors of mine throughout, who have told me, when I always said that, you know, that one of my great advantages in life is that people have been kind enough to tell me when I'm stupid. When I always joke that when I became mayor of Gaithersburg, people laughed at my jokes more because they wanted to be my friends, but they wouldn't tell me when I had made errors. And that's not a great help. And there's people in this room that certainly have told me when I'm stupid, and I appreciate that. I do. Will leaned over to me during this, and I'm going to stop, Mr. President. I know you said, but Will leaned over to me during this when he talked about Emery Grove, and he said, don't start crying, because he and I will cry together on various things. Emery Grove is something that should have brought tears to Montgomery County years ago. I saw it. I lived it. And we have finally started to revitalize Emery Grove, and it's because of people in this room. But we need to make certain that we learn from our horrendous history. We need to make certain that we appreciate that we should never do something like that again. And we need to make certain that by working together, we're going to have that better life for everyone in Montgomery County. Thank you all for everything you do. Thank you. And I'm sorry, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. There are still a few more things that we need to celebrate and honors that need to be made before we get to lunch. But now I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Jawando so that we can start the reading of the proclamation. Let's do it here because everybody has a part. Yeah.
All right. We're going to read the proclamation, and then we will have brief comments from some of the folks in video, and then we'll go to lunch. I will start off. I'll start us and finish us here. Whereas February is National Black History Month, which recognizes and honors contributions that African Americans have made to this country, as well as the events and history of the African diaspora. And whereas on January 1st, 1863,
President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, setting the United States on a path to end slavery. And 1 century later, in 1963, more than 200,000 Americans gathered for the March on Washington for jobs and freedom, calling for African American civil and economic rights. And
whereas Black History Month had its beginnings in the United States in 1926, when Black educator and historian Carter G. Woodson moved to officially recognize the achievements and contributions of African Americans to our nation's history and identity. And
whereas Black history is complicated, and unlike any other story ever told, enslaved Africans were brought to this country under brutal conditions, and those who survived from generations of people have become educators, doctors, scientists, and world changers. And
whereas Maryland is home to African American heroes like Frederick Douglass, Josiah Henson, Harriet Tubman, and Thurgood Marshall, who paved the way for the young activists of today who continue to fight for racial equity, freedom, social justice, and
Black Americans have contributed significantly to the growth and development of the nation in Montgomery County through distinguished leadership in every field of human endeavor. And
whereas this year's National Black History Month theme is Black Resistance, highlighting how African Americans have united throughout generations to defeat systematic oppression while seeking ways to nurture and protect Black lives. And
whereas Black faith institutions are spaces where Black communities have always met to organize resistance efforts and inspired people to participate in resistance movements, and have offered sanctuary during times of crisis. And
whereas education is a form of Black resistance, historically Black colleges and universities, HBCUs, emerged as a space for the formation of activists, artists, business owners, educators, and more, and their continued operation have stood as a testament to Black investment and creative thinking in the face of the changing landscape of higher education. And
whereas Black fraternities and sororities have played a significant role in providing resources to uplift Black communities and resist oppression since the early 1900s. These organizations have worked to support the intellectual development of Black communities nationwide through the Jim Crow era, the Civil Rights Movement, and even today. And
whereas throughout our shared history, Black people have worked to develop political representation through activism and inclusive legislation to seek their rightful space in this country and resist oppression.
Now, therefore, be it resolved, the County Council of Montgomery County, Maryland hereby proclaims February is Black History Month, and be it further resolved that all residents are encouraged to recognize the outstanding services of our African Americans who have greatly enriched our community. Presented this day, the 7th of February in the year 2023, signed by the Council President and myself and Councilmember Sales on behalf of all of our colleagues. Happy Black History Month.
Now I'll turn it over back to Councilmember Jawando to introduce our guests for a few brief remarks.
Please call you.
Ask Councilmember Sales to come down as well. It was mentioned, we have this council form of government since 1968 or so. There have been 5 Black council members that elected and 1 appointed. So 6 total. 3 of the 6 are in the room. Not enough, but importance to note, and we're very thankful. I appreciate Councilmember Aronas for mentioning everyone's name. So we're going to hear 1 minute or so, and we got a preacher coming first, so he's going to lead by example. Reverend Timothy Warner, who's the pastor of Emory Grove United Methodist Church, for brief remarks. Come on up.
It's a long minute. Right?
Yeah. Long minute, I can do a lot in it.
First, I need to say how grateful
we as a community and I as a leader are to the council for all that the council has done, and for this recognition that uplifts not just me as a leader, but our entire community. The community where I serve has such a deep and rich history that it deserves every day to be lifted up by this county and further beyond. But I'd like to say today that while we are a very progressive county in Montgomery County, we still need to do a lot of work to reckon with the structural racism that we participated in over the years that literally destroy 40-plus communities within the bounds of our county. We at the church are leading in the reweaving of the fabric of that community. It was destroyed by urban renewal throughout the 70s, but and we're happy to be doing that. That is our work. We believe from God to do that work. but having assumed that work, it is the work of county government now to do some more planful and systematic and transparent work, structural work, to reweave, to graft rather the fabric that we are recreating back into the tapestry that is Montgomery County. That's work that has to be intentional, it has to come with budget, it has to come with votes, and we hope that that work will continue. Thank you again for the recognition, and I look forward to working with each of you.
Thank you, Reverend Warner. Next, we're going to have Carolyn Taylor from Historic Emery Grove and president of the Rotary Club of Historic Emery Grove. Thank you.
Thank you to President Glass and to the entire council who has heard the Emery Grove story before. So we don't have to repeat that, but you know what the struggle was. And I believe that the resistance was that we were determined as a community to be in charge and control of our own lives, using our own power, maintaining dignity and pride, walking with your head up high with a smile, but teaching your children at home, because we sent them out into the world to learn, but we had to teach them at home. And so we continue in my capacity and the capacity of the pastor, Reverend Warner, to insist that people know their history, that they investigate their history, and that they pass it on. And that is where the power is, that is where the resistance is that we will not be defeated. We're going to keep on teaching, we're going to keep on preaching, we're going to keep on remembering, not going back, but building on the past for our future. Thank you very much.
Next, we're going to bring up my fraternity brother, who hopefully notices my clothing today. Brother Kenneth Clark, who's the former president of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Iota Epsilon Lambda Chapter, our chapter, to bring remarks from his perspective. Brother Clark.
Good morning, Council President Glass, other council members. In case you don't know, the colors of Alpha Phi Alpha are black and gold, and our brother is resplendent in those colors. One of our founders said years ago that out of our need, our fraternity brought social purpose and social action. To use today's phrase, out of our need for resistance came social action, and that is the purpose of Alpha Phi Alpha in this community. I'd be remiss if we didn't recognize brothers of our fraternity who, our chapter having started in 1970, new to the game by comparison to Emery Grove, but our action with brothers like Hanley Normant, Bob Hatchell, Roscoe Nix, Devance Walker, our current president, Kevin Johnson, are all here, or have all been here, to try to raise the perspective of our community. One of the things that Brother Jawando talked about was the erasure of Black history. One of the efforts that our chapter did to make sure that some parts of our history would not be erased is that we initiated the building of the Martin Luther King Memorial on the mall. That idea started here. Our brother George Steele, a resident of our county, brought forth that recommendation to our chapter back in 1983. It took us a long time to get it done, but it got done. So that memorial would take a lot to get that erased. So we want to be sure that we do those things. Our building of our remodeling of the Smithfield School as a model of education, as a representative of education in our county. That black Smithfield Colored School is now, with the county funds and our work, a community service location available for the community to look at. So we appreciate having that help from the county to make that happen. So we've been here, we are here, and Alpha Phi Alpha plans to be here into the future to help our county grow. Thank you.
Dr. Monifa McKnight is at a school board hearing this morning, but she would have been our fourth speaker, a representative of the group, obviously a member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, as is my wife. And so we want to just thank everyone for coming to celebrate. I think we're going to take a picture. Oh, do you want to give remarks in her stead? Yes, come on up. Our president of the Theta Omega Omega chapter, who's also named Michelle.
Good afternoon. My remarks are going to be brief because it is lunchtime, but I do want to say thank you. And as stated, I'm Michelle McNeil-Gill, the president of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Theta Omega Omega chapter, serving primarily the southern part of Montgomery County. We are the first Black Greek letter organization chartered in Montgomery County back in 1969, so we're 53 years old, and we've worked hard through to provide service to the county through education, which supports Black resistance, through voter registration, voter education. And you heard my remarks on the video, which I appreciate the opportunity to participate in. The proclamation means so much. This whole event means so much, because I'm thinking, gee, I should be at work, but I'm so glad I'm here today. Wouldn't have missed it, and appreciate all the kind words in the proclamation. Thank you.
So we're going to ask the rest of the council to come down, and anyone else who would like to join the picture to join us, please.
I appreciate everybody joining us this afternoon. We are now going to go into recess